Good evening, everybody. I'll now call this regular board meeting of Charles City Community School District to order. If I could have a roll call from the secretary.
President Kebrick.
Here.
Vice President Mack.
Here.
Board Member Dr. Schroed.
Here.
Board Member Fox. Here. Board Member Yeager. Here.
You. With that, I'll take a motion for approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for the proposed property tax levy hearing.
We're not on that one yet.
Yeah, we just need the approval of the agenda first.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We can now move on to the public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 25-26 budget. Announced that this is the time, place, and date to hold a public hearing on the matter of the proposed 2025-26 budget. An inquiry was made as to whether any written comments or objections had been filed by any resident of the district. At this time, I'll take any public comment from the floor. If anybody would like to speak on the proposed tax levy.
Yeah,
Step forward and state your name for all of us, please.
I'm Dick Harrington. I bought a house in this town in 1963. I've been paying taxes. Now I'd like to retire in this town. And if you keep raising taxes, like you raise my tax proposed $400. You might not, I mean, I made good social security because I worked for 20-something hours now, but still, it's hard for me to make that. Put that into my budget. Now, am I gonna have to move out of Charles City? Get cheaper taxes, or is there something you can do for retirees in here to help with the tax? My question.
Not allowed to answer questions.
Right.
We're just listening.
Better listen to what comes.
We got it.
Well.
Selena Barr.
What's up?
Selena Barr, I'm 8701 from Charles City High School. My family's been here since 1880. This town has taken care of me. This board has taken care of us. And I assent to the choice and the decisions of the board. I've spent 30 years of my career building infrastructure throughout the Midwest, Germany, Saudi Arabia. And what I know about building is there's a time when the building is no longer for use safely. I walked the building a few weeks ago to help a teacher move out of her classroom. And I had the opportunity to use the bathroom in middle school. The difference between that section and the old section, the section that I cleaned when I was in 9th grade, from the front to the back, the entire building. I remember it very well. The building is past, way past, due for something new, something for this community to excel in, to draw students here. I'm for building, thanks.
Anyone else that would like to make a comment? being said, being this is a public hearing, we are allowed to respond. So I'm gonna ask Dr. Bernard to give a little insight to what they're seeing on the proposed, whether you would like.
Yeah, and so on the proposed document that you were mailed, I was mailed one too, because I'm a resident of Charles City. One of the things they do on the back page is they put every home next automatically on that document, looks like it goes up 10% in value. And that's not accurate, because it's not an assessment year for most homes, for hardly any homes, unless you had something special occur. And so our taxes are actually going down 50 cents with the help of the board. We're actually lowering our portion of taxes 50 cents. And what's a little confusing on page 2 of that document, on the backside, they use a 10% multiplier on the value of all property on the backside, and that's an estimate of a home going from $100,000 to $110,000 in 1 year. So it is a little deceptive, because our tax rate is going down. The district has lower taxes by 50 cents. And so just if that's helpful at all, but I would not expect your taxes to go up based on what we did, because unless your home was assessed a much greater value, it should have gone down from what the school board did.
And Brian, maybe point out.
So this ain't the exact amount?
No, the Department of Management is the group that publishes that. And so they publish an estimate saying that everybody's home will go up 10% in value in 1 year. And I would love that if my home went up 10% every year. I could, like you said, retire early and do something, but that's not accurate. And so it's unfortunate. I think they think that that's a really nice concrete way to say, oh, if a home goes up from 100 to 110, here's what that increase in taxes will be. But that's not accurate. Most homes, it's not an assessment year, so they're not going to be reassessed in value. Something special would have had to happen for you to get reassessed in your value individually. So I would not anticipate, since we lowered taxes 50 cents, that our portion of that would cause your taxes to go up.
didn't retire early. I'm 82.
No, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm just saying, if I could get 10% a year, that'd be great. I would retire early, but yeah. So just wanted to clarify that the back page of that is very confusing, and that's put out by the Department of Management. And so as superintendents, we've talked about that, how that's not helpful to taxpayers.
Okay.
So.
Just let's make a comment just under Mayor Charles City. And the same thing Brian just said, the same thing is true for the city. Our tax rate is going up like 1 penny per $1,000. So unless your valuations went up, your city tax rate will be minimally affected also. So like Brian said, that set out by the state is very deceiving to what, if you don't know the whole story.
I probably didn't go up any, I know that. I didn't do nothing, so.
Is there anyone else that would like to make further comment? I'll ask one final time, any further comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Like, motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Been properly moved and second, meeting adjourned.
That was short.
Now we can save the fun stuff.
We can't start till.
Being retired, I ain't got much to do.
Yeah, you stay all night.
I like living in this town. Like I said, I've been here since '63.
I've been here since last summer, but I've enjoyed it. It's been good for me too.
You got a Minnesota boy here now. So I come from Minnesota.
Oh, happy to have you.
Wife started that wife in '62 and '63 I bought a house.
Okay. You got to see the Vikings when they were contenders.
Oh, yeah.
Grand Tarkington.
Yeah.
Are you talking about like Brian? They're gonna be contenders this year.
I'm in.
I'm also a fan, they're a contender.
Oh, yeah, I'm from Minnesota too, I know.
So you think they're gonna pick up here?
No, they're not, they're still changing.
So then they're out, right?
I just want a jersey where I can put a new name on for the
Yeah.
player each year. Just this new name.
Get your number 9 jersey.
Yeah.
I was in high school when they started. 1960. I graduated in '61.
From here?
Oh,
Oh, from Minnesota. You were listening. I don't know when he came.
He said his wife got a job at White in 1962 and bought a house in 1963.
I don't know when he went to high school.
He didn't tell us that. He didn't say I went to high school.
Meeting started, so I guess not.
So we have about 1 minute before we can technically start the next regular meeting. If anybody would like to make sure their name's on the sheet, if they'd like to make public comment, that'd be great.
Then I went to here to GMP,
Oh, yeah.
that's where the money come in.
Yeah.
Over White.
They may have pictures here and stuff. I mean, if you want back utility trucks.
Social Security, I went from Caudal to now to Tony South.
I think they just share it.
I think that helps on my retirement. Yeah, yeah. But I ain't got one of my kids that are staying here.
You don't? Look at that.
Six, I got a granddaughter
Oh, good.
that, well, I'll hear, I can't say that.
The what is?
Chick-
No, Lisa.
Huh?
The what is?
No.
Check Al,
The other one. Cambridge. She works in the office in Cambridge. Her and me used to make trailers here.
Oh, yeah?
Come on. Well, that's it.
You're really gonna leave?
We're just getting ready to start the next meeting.
I haven't seen it. Did you get a copy?
The next meeting is the big meeting. We'll talk
Bond
about the bond.
it'll go past bedtime, unfortunately.
And then there's one after this for a work session. You're welcome to stay for all of them.
Or you can go.
You might regret some.
I was an officer in the union at White for years.
All right, it's 5:41. I will now call the regular meeting of the Charles City Community School District to order. And we'll have a roll call again, please.
President Kebrick,
Here.
Vice President Mack,
Here.
Board Member Dr. Schroed,
Here.
Member Fox,
Here.
Board Member Yeager, here.
Thank you. We'll have the reading of the district mission and vision statement by Catherine Fox, please.
She's
Josh
gonna
will
give
read
it. Shouldn't have it.
Our mission is to challenge all students to achieve their full potential through engaging, responsive educational experiences that inspire innovation, critical thinking, and collaboration. Our vision to develop learners who are competent, compassionate problem solvers.
Thank you, Kathleen. I will now take a motion for approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We can now move on to, welcome to all our visitors this evening. Is there any public comment? I have no one on the list. Did anyone want to make a public comment at this time? I'll ask one more time. Anyone want to make public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on. I'll now take a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are now able to move on to the administrator and director's report, correct? Yes. Administrator and director reports. Who would you like to start with the audit?
With the audit, yes, please. It looks like he's muted.
All right, can everyone hear me now?
Yep, we got you.
All right, I'm Adam Sturm, with Anderson Larkin, and I helped, oversee the audit engagement after, Alex Barr left our firm. So I just wanted to confirm everyone has had a chance to review the audit, or has a copy of it.
Yeah, I think we've all seen it.
Okay. So one point I'll point out is on page 2 of the second paragraph, which states, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of Charles City Community School District as of June 30th, 2024, and the respective changes in financial position and, where applicable, its cash flows thereof for the year then ended in accordance with U.S. generally accepted accounting principles. So to sum that up, that means we issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is the best kind of opinion that we can issue on those. Next, I'll have you guys turn to page 9. So here shows on page 9, there's the condensed statement of net position. So this just shows all the assets, liabilities, and net position for the school district. So from 2023 to 2024, assets increased by $850,000, which was due to a slight increase in current assets. Liabilities decreased $970,000, which was due to a pay down of debt in the current year. And net position increased $2.1 million, which will be explained on the next page. On page 10 is the statement of activities. So this just shows all the revenue and other financing sources and expenses for the district for the current year. Total revenue increased by roughly, or decreased, I'm sorry, by roughly $800,000 due to a decrease in operating grants in the current year. Total expenses increased by $1.1 million due to increases in instruction and support service program expenses, which that's been a very common trend among a lot of school districts this year. As a result, the change in net position for FY24 was an increase of $2.1 million. So the remaining 2 to 3 pages of the MD&A are just more detailed information regarding the financial statements that I just presented. Page 14 through 25, these are more detailed financials that actually flow to these condensed financials that I just presented. Page 26 through 43, these are notes to the financial statements. Typically, we don't go over these, but I do encourage you guys to look over them because they do contain important information related to the audit. So I'll have you go to page 44. This is a budgetary comparison of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances compared to the actual compared to budgeted. So a big thing I'd like to point out is that all expenditures and all the functions were less than what was actually budgeted, which is a good thing. Page 47 through 63 is supplementary information that relates to the audit. Again, we typically don't review this. It just contains other supplementary information that we're required to report on. Page 64 is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. This just shows how federal awards were spent by the district during the current year. Page 69 through 71, this section is the schedule of findings and question costs. There was just one finding reported for the current year due to financial reporting. I guess there was a small issue with there were some fixed assets that were coded both as included in the fixed asset listing and being depreciated, and also included in construction in progress. We have since this financial reporting issue has since been corrected on that, and we have no other comments regarding this. So that is all I have. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
No. Doesn't look like it on our end, Adam. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you guys.
I'll move on to the superintendent report.
So as I visit schools, I tell the teachers have been doing a really great job. I try and get into schools on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of each week in classrooms. And we're doing a great job of getting kids ready as subgroups need a little extra work, and our state assessment is only a couple of weeks away now at this point in time. So that's really kind of the chance for teachers and students to show what they've been working on all year and how they're meeting those standards. And so looking forward to that. And I know there's some great incentives that teachers and principals and teams have put in place, but also a lot of great work that's been going on with our targeted students. So that really could help us to no longer have a significant subgroup declared targeted, and then all of a sudden your school's ranking comes up one whole level just because of that. So a lot of great work happening, and I'm pleased to see that, and so looking forward to those results. Our high school robotics team this next weekend will be down at UNI, the Uni Dome. in Cedar Falls, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Now, if you want to just come to see us go to the Championship of the Worlds, that's Saturday and Saturday evening. I'm hoping we have a great run and can make it to the World Championships. I believe it's in Houston again this last year. Students and Coach White and Coach Johnson, good luck to all of them. The High School Art Show, Friday, April 4th from 5 to 7 down at the Art Center. So I'm looking forward to having a chance to swing by and check that out. Many great artists. If you have a chance to follow us on Facebook, you'll see that we had a couple of showcase artists on Facebook. Looks some really nice artwork. I look forward to seeing it. The high school play, not this weekend, but the following weekend. Please take a chance, if board members, if you want to get tickets, that was in the update on Friday. I pushed the ticket link out. So something to think about, and might be a nice evening out on the town. Jiving with Jazz is tomorrow at 5:30, and the show starts, it's out at the FFA Enrichment Center, and the show starts at 6, but the doors open at 5:30. Tickets are also available at the door, so I think that might be a date night for the Burnites, actually. And then FFA as the overall winner of Supreme Chapter for the state of Iowa. So what a huge accomplishment. Great work to all the teachers and students that helped make that happen. And then also overall winner of Growing Leaders. So that's something to be proud of. I've seen those kids take a lot of leadership roles, and they really do represent the future. So that's my superintendent's report. Great week.
Brian, did you speak on the FEH comment?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I had a little note at the top. Switch the order on myself. FEH has mentioned that they will definitely be working to incorporate the bond work that we're going to discuss tonight. And they believe that they can incorporate the $4 million bond into the work that they're planning for the community. The bond that would go to the voters in November, so that it would be a seamless integration. So tonight's bond hearing and then resolution vote would fit in the FEH plans, and Matt assured me that they can bring those together. So we can probably get more details specifically at the work session tonight. But thanks for reminding me.
Oh,
All right, we'll move on to item number 8, board committee reports. And I don't believe we had any meetings of committees since we had spring break and all those things. We had brief meetings to get FEH started, and that's about it. So we'll move on to new business action items. 9A will be district goals, achievement, progress, continued from work session.
Jen, you want to start, and I'll try and share it to the screen quick, and then I'll go after you.
I'll just go over a couple of the goals I have as working with the senior leadership team as a academic director for the district, which 2 of my biggest hats are the curriculum and special support special ed services. So the first goal, when we pull it up here, and it's I can share the goal and I can share some of the action steps. We don't have the data to see how the goal has progressed yet, because my first goal,
It's page 47.
Thank you.
is related to how we're going to do on our ISAS this spring as compared to 2024. Okay. So the first goal is a 5% growth in proficiency in literacy, math, and science from spring 24 to spring 25, as measured by the ISAS and the FAST scores that they're watching to the country. The second goal is decreasing the number of students that we identify as in need of special education services from spring of 24 to spring of 25. And we're just starting to look at rosters, updating our rosters with current enrollment to plan for next year on how we're going to transition those kids and what kind of staffing. So I think my first, the 2 goals I'm going to share, I don't necessarily have the final data for you at this point, but I can share with you what we've done so far. In the first goal, we've gone through a literacy curriculum review process, and we have brought that proposal to you guys with the CKLA adoption for next year, K4. We also obtained the summer reading grant utilizing language and literacy app through Imagine Learning that we are utilizing with our students in K through K6 that have individualized reading plans, because that was a new requirement by the legislation this year. And we're seeing growth in that. It's a phonics program that helps It places the student at their level, it gives them an assessment, places them where they're at with decoding, and encoding and getting into phenomenological awareness, and it also helps our EL students. I have a lot of EL students on that program too. We have a group of teachers that are going through letters training, which is a literacy, scientific science and reading literacy, which our CKLA curriculum that was approved is based on. So they're going through that. Handwriting curriculum was again a new legislative move through the state. We've implemented that. We're continuing to support Bridges implementation, and we're seeing some nice growth with that in K-5. And we're also continuing to improve the PLC processes, and trying to continue to tighten those up and align those across the district.
And to piggyback that includes cursive, the handwriting.
Yeah.
As part of,
Yes,
cursive.
yes,
So that, are we teaching cursive again now?
yes, we are.
Can I take that course?
I think
There's probably, we could probably offer an adult class, so.
What grade do they
This,
teach cursive?
what?
Grade do they teach cursive?
They have to start in 3rd grade, but we are doing some printing with the same program in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd. So even in 2nd grade, I think they're starting to get the cursive moves. But 3rd grade is when it's required. So. This link has a lot of the screening data from fall to winter that a lot of the admin shared at the work session. So it's, especially the MAP scores are the same. Some of the FAST scores, when you look at those, is the same data Joe Carney shared, just a different visual. Okay. And again, ups and downs between fall to winter, maintaining basically in most grade level cohorts. But again, lots of variables that affect that.
Can we point out just one thing? Can you go back one second? And so it's important to note that the color coding is important because it's a cascading slide, because we're looking at each year as it grows, not across. Some people be like, whoa, it's really jumping all over. So I just want to point that out.
No, the color coding with the white, blue and yellow. And this will come up, this is with the IEP data, I think it is.
Okay.
I brought my glasses, I guess. Yeah.
ELA and math, it says.
Yeah. So when you look at like grade 3 in 2021, that score is blue. You can see how that class is performing as they go to 2022, 2023, 2024. So, which does help, which is otherwise we can look at teacher score. Otherwise, we're evaluating more the teacher than rather how the student is performing on the ISS. Thanks, Josh. Things we're continuing to plan around goal 1. Okay, is that adoption of the curriculum. We're starting to even some professional learning with that at the end of this school year, but it will be implementing full time next school year. We're onboarding new teachers. We're trying to do a better job of that, onboarding new teachers with Bridges, any curriculum we have necessarily, because sometimes we do the initial professional learning when we adopt a resource, but then as we get new teachers or turnover, we oftentimes like they fall through the cracks. So we're trying to support the new teachers or even teachers that might switch position or move to a different grade level or something like that. We did a professional learning and an expectation in early January about utilizing the Bridges intervention program with elementary teachers during their MTSS time, addressing based on our FAST scores and MAP scores at the elementary level. So teachers made a plan at the elementary level for that. We're trying to be a lot more proactive as in preparing for ISAS K-12. We brought a plan to all the content area teams and the grade level teams district-wide on how to help your students prepare how to take an online test, identifying students that might be in that targeted group that Dr. Bernite talked about, and supporting them, giving them practice questions as we're approaching the testing time, and also just setting goals and being self-reflective as a student and how they are, but the effort they put into those types of tests too. That's something we haven't done in the past few years anyway. We're planning to do a summer reading program, summer school option for K-4, which we haven't done for years. We're utilizing that Imagine Learning grant money that we have it through June 30th, but we also have some additional funding, so we're targeting students again in those targeted groups that are proficient, and we're going to offer that program through the month of June. So I think that was all I want.
Quick,
Okay.
go back and back there. Go. I guess we'll look.
I think so, yeah. And again, just continuing to the PLC process, getting better at that. Goal 2 is the decrease in special education identification. I think that we've talked about in the past how we're slightly over-identified with for students who have IEPs, and then that is also a targeted area for several of our students from the state evaluation and performance. So we're trying to implement and continue to implement. These are things we've started either a year or two ago, a student assistance teams, again, trying to calibrate and get those back working to support kids academically and with behavior needs. We've also asking our special ed teams to do data review process protocols within their PLCs to look as a team, as a student who has an IUP that may not be progressing as much as we think they should be. So how do we approach that with support through the AEA? We provide a lot of professional learning also for our special ed staff around just compliances with IEPs, the expectations, how to write and we're continuing this, how to write IEP goals and math and literacy and behavior strategies, learning around behavior types of interventions. And we're also continuing to work with literacy instruction, because literacy instruction at the intervention level is a little bit different at times, along with math instruction than core instruction. And what are some of those best instructional practices for our students that are not being proficient at grade level? And then we've also put in a protocol, and we continue to use this, and we have decreased the number of students that are attending out of district placements. We ask all our team reps and our administrators, this is the process you need to go through. This is the data we need to see before we're going to think about moving that student into a different placement outside Charles City Schools. This is some of the data specific to IEP subgroups across ELA and math. And again, it goes by cohorts. But you can see, and this goes back to 2019, obviously 2020, there was no ISAS given, okay? But we have made improvements. Again, you're gonna see dips, but there are some significant improvements in how our students with IEPs are performing in those areas.
I just have one question. So looking at the data for the first cohort in 2021, we had a 530, and then in 2023, we had a 0. Is that an error or is that just their performance?
Their performance.
Okay, great. Just want to clarify. Thank you so much. Yeah.
And I think the next slide shows science. And again, science is an area that we're continuing to work on with alignment, looking at an aligned curriculum and doing some professional learning with that across, especially our grade levels 5-12. That's all I.
Okay, well, this is me.
Can I ask a question? Is that summer reading program for students going into K4 or like current 4th graders?
It would be current 4th graders.
Current kindergarten.
Yeah. Because we're using that FAST data and ISAS proficiency to identify which.
Got a question for you.
Uh-huh.
I got 2 great granddaughters in school here now.
Okay.
And they cannot read my writing. I write good, but they do not.
I was just gonna say, you need to sign up.
Probably should take a class with me.
They don't, can't
First.
The cursive,
they can't read it.
they're not accustomed to reading it.
I got it print it, they can't. But
Yeah.
Are you can.
That was just implemented this last year, this school year, so this will be the first year. And that's a common problem. We have a lot of high school students, there's a lot of college students that can't read cursive handwriting because it hasn't been an expectation, so.
I got a couple kids that signed their name and I don't know how anybody ever read your name. And they're adult, I mean, they're.
Yeah, exactly. It just hasn't been an expectation for a while, but it's coming back around, so.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.
So at the beginning of the year, I put together 3 goals, and so these are really staying in line with those three goals that I put together at the beginning of the year. And so I shared a little bit with the board presidents as I had a chance to work with them. But I wanted to get in front of the board and talk about that. I thought the mid-year goals was a great time. And really it segues into the work that the principals are doing well. Goal one was, for me, was standard 9 operation and management under the standards for administrative leaders. Operate the school and promote students' academic success and well-being. And so really that goes to those efficient and effective operational management, important things that help the school to function and be successful. So I've met with all the stakeholders early in the year for their planning. We looked at setting good, physical, responsible goals. And so this really comes to that management and being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. And so then partnered closely with the chief business official to make district-wide budgeting protocols. We established budgeting goals for all the administrators as part of their evaluation. And then monitor the yearly projection for the unspent authorized budget and spending authority. So we actively talk about our 5-year projection and are updating that all the time as we put in scenarios and numbers. So next slide, please. So in the summer of 2024, I met frequently when I first got here last summer with the building leaders to realign positions and find efficiencies in staffing. And really a lot of that started in May, probably a couple of days before I was officially hired. but we got going and really started to work on that because I wanted to know if we're replacing a position, could we find efficiencies? Could we shift people around? And so with the great work of the administrative team and some insurance savings, we were able to save about $1.5 million, which was when I was hired. That was one of the goals the board put forward. So I was really glad that we could do it that quickly. I didn't think that would be possible. So the district solvency ratio, as a result of that, our authority looks great for the next 5 years, and the solvency ratio is going to be above 20% next year, which means we'll once again lower the cash levy. And so most likely our taxes would go down again for taxpayers for another year because of that. So and then also working with the unions, the interest-based problem solving group, it's been really enjoyable to get to know them. And we've had a lot of great conversations. I think we are closing in on some real great progress. And so hopefully April, we've got some great news to share on that. So here's a projection of one of the measures of physical health. It's called the projection of unspent authorized budget, or spending authority is another term people talk about. So this is what's projected to happen based on the information I've shared with you about projections. Some of this includes the settlements that I've shared with you in closed session or exempt session to talk about. So we're in a good, healthy position financially. We do have declining enrollments. We got to keep that in mind. Each year, we have a little bit less money, new money to operate with. So we have to be good stewards, and then we have to continue to right size. If, for example, somebody were to take a job in a different district or move closer to family or retire, we want to ask good questions about, okay, what were the class sizes? Is there an efficiency we could find? And so if we find those, then that's a preferable way to reduce operations. So, but for next year, we don't have to reduce any positions that way.
Can I interrupt you for a minute, Brett?
Yep.
On that note, I don't know how much these guys know, but we've talked in depth about the loss of students, whether it's open enrollment or whatever it may be. And so maybe fill them in on the process you're using now to get that feedback.
Oh, yeah. So over the last few months, we put together more of a comprehensive survey. And so as anybody for March, just to kind of get forward on the open enrollment piece. But we had about 14 people decide that they wanted to go out, open enroll out. We had about 3 that decided they wanted to come in. So those 14 people that decided to leave were the first people to complete a survey. And so Heather communicates with them and then sends them a survey link. And so they have filled that survey out. And so we are getting more insight. In one cases, one family had five children in the district. And so we need a little bigger N. And so we're going to work our way backwards. People that maybe left last year, reach out to some of them also to kind of get a bigger N. And then I would certainly love to share that with the board, some of our findings as to how we can continue to improve that process. So, yeah. Next slide, please. So the solvency ratio I mentioned earlier, it takes 2 years to put together the solvency ratio money. So technically, this year, we're still able to levy a smaller amount for cash, which is part of the way we were reducing our taxes. But we didn't want to levy the full amount for cash because it's just gonna kick us up higher on the solvency ratio. It'll take lower to come back down below 20%. And so, we're at a healthy place. So next year, we will still be above the 20%, based on the 2-year compilation, that's used to determine this ratio. So we'll have a few years where we can't levy for cash, based on this modeling, so. And a person can think of solvency ratio as kind of the cash. You need both cash and authority in Iowa to operate. And so solvency ratio is that cash that you have on hand. Authority is the permission to spend the cash. So then my second goal was school improvement. And so we want to get more schools to really show the great work they're doing and align that teaching with standards. And that way kids in those subgroups will help raise their achievement. And also kids in general will be taught according to the standards, and it will show the learning that they're doing and raise achievement. And so honestly, at the midpoint, we have some ups and downs. I'm going to be honest, we're not progressing quite as fast as I hoped for. And I think the leaders were very transparent about some areas that had some nice growth, some areas we still need to work on. I think it's clear that the adoption work that we've done in math really helped in elementary. The English language arts materials didn't arrive in December. The company wasn't finished and needed some more time. So I do think that would have helped us to have some of those things in place, but no excuses. We need to do better, and we will do better on raising achievement scores. So mid-year school performance, chronic absenteeism is now a component of the school performance profile. And so we are doing better than last year at this time. So that's something to be proud of. I know the principals have spent a lot of time identifying, targeting students that have absentee issues and really working under the law to make sure we're following up and doing all those things. So we have improved that. And so that's one of the measures that helps our school ranking. And then they've worked to identify and target students in subgroups in a more comprehensive way. And Dr. Schilling talked about that too. Our teachers are really trying to focus on kids in those subgroups, because Lincoln, it came down to one student that was a student with some special needs. It could have been any of a variety, but one student would have made a difference as far as their label goes. And that would have also automatically raised Washington, because they're linked together, because Washington doesn't take the assessment. So schools identified as having targeted students automatically lowered in their performance profile if they are targeted. And so that happened to all of our schools. So goal 3, standards, curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And so develop intellectually rigorous and coherent curriculum, instruction, and assessments to provide each student academic success and well-being. And so really then you want to look at those as I work with Jen, Dr. Schilling, and the principals. You really want to look at those measures that are showing that growth. And so the MAPS and the FAST data, supporting teachers as they work to focus on standards and learning. That's one of the big things that you can ask principals about. I've been big about, let's get standards up on the board. Let's make sure we're showing how we're tying it into the standards when we're teaching on a regular basis. And so I do bring that up a lot. And then support district worked on standards linked formative assessments. We've brought in people from the AEA, Dr. Schilling has coordinated that. And so then the tests that are happening are linked to standards, and then kids are asked to show that knowledge, understanding while the teaching is going on. So we don't wait so long to get that feedback. That's a formative piece. It happens more often. And then I visit classrooms weekly. So I do have a chance to get in classrooms weekly. And so that has happened. So
Do the students know who you are now?
I would say high school students mostly refer to me as the guy who can make a snow day. So I don't know. I think a few know my name now. And then the elementary kids, yes, they do know my name pretty well. So middle school, I think they're too distracted by whatever's going on in the room.
Yeah,
So-
or anything.
So anyway, and if you have any more constructive feedback, we can do that in a closed session. The laws change, so I'm gonna do this part in public. And then if there's constructive things that maybe would, be of a more serious nature, certainly we could do that in a closed session anytime you'd like. So. Thank you.
I'll move on to new business action item 9B. Take a motion for approval of handbook amendments for attendance requirements.
Make a motion that we approve the handbook amendments for attendance requirements.
I'll second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Move on to the service agreement for North Central Iowa Education Consortium. Dr. Burnett, will you give a quick rundown of this for these guys?
Yeah, and so, it's part of 16 different schools around Northwest Iowa are working together to find sharing opportunities. And so there's a retired superintendent out of Waverly, and that's his LLC. And for $750, he's working hard to try and find us some sharing opportunities so we can increase our sharing dollars. And so I don't know if anybody knows what that means in the audience, but sharing dollars, the state allows you to share certain positions between school districts. And so, for example, Jerry spends some time in Rockford, so that then gives the district the equivalent of 4 extra students. So next year, that would be $32,000 for our district, and then Rockford also gets 4 extra students, the equivalent of $32,000. And so that's really a great system, and Iowa allows you to share up to the equivalent of, I believe, 21 students that way with different positions that you can share. And so that's what one of the main things that this consortium will help us to do, but also some other creative things that might happen if we need a few teaching sections, or maybe if we have a few sections that we could have a few more kids in. We could then charge those other districts and the kids could then virtually come into that class. And so it's a way that we can then help maximize our efficiency. Maybe we have a smaller class and we want to have some kids Zoom in. We could do that and then build the other district. And so that's already occurring with some of these schools in this consortium. And so we are looking to join that and then have somebody that's going to help us make these connections.
I will take a motion for approval of service agreement with North Central Iowa.
I'll make a motion that we approve that service agreement with North Central Iowa Education Consortium.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Now proceed to vote. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion will carry. We'll now move on to the hearing on the proposed issuance of approximately $4 million school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bond. At this point, I will open the floor for public comment. Anyone that would like to make public comment on this hearing? I'll ask again, is there anyone that would like to make a public comment during this hearing? One final time, is there anyone that would like to make public comment at this time? Seeing none, we move on to item E, the resolution for supporting the proposed issuance of approximately $4 million school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds. I will take motions from the floor.
These are just this.
Yep.
I'll make a motion for the approval of the resolution supporting the proposed issuance of private school infrastructure, sales, services, and use tax.
I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
And properly moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I'll ask one more time. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll now proceed to vote. All those in favor of the resolution supporting the proposed issuance of approximately $4 million school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion will carry. Thank you very much. Now move on to agenda item 9F, Agile Mine license agreement. Take a motion from the floor.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I have just a quick comment. We've somehow review this curriculum and validate that it's achieving what we want in some way or somehow. It's probably more of a Dr. Shelley question than anybody else.
Reviewing the curriculum?
So I think this is our second year renewing it, right? Like we've used this curriculum before.
Correct.
So obviously we like it, we think it's good, so we want to renew it. I'm just questioning, like, are we validating that it's achieving the outcomes that we want?
Well, then you're gonna see that it's a 1-year high school
Mhm.
curriculum renewal. The reason we're going with 1 year is that the next school year, we will go through a curriculum review process, but the 6 12. And the middle school Agile Minds license doesn't expire until the end of the next school year.
Okay, great.
So rather than adopt at the high school, adopt at the middle school when best practices that they're aligned, we're just renewing Agile Minds for 1 year at the high school, so we can do the whole review process.
I'll second. Thank you. Thank you.
Been properly moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion will carry. We'll now move on to board policies. I'll take a motion from the floor.
So these are all policies that are required for us to change by law. So we don't go through these and say, we want to add this and modify this, the state says this. I'd like to point that out every time that we're not spending hours on hours looking at all these policies, making all these changes.
Sneaking stuff in like.
Yeah. So I'd make a motion to approve the policy changes as presented.
Been properly moved and seconded to approve the first reading of the policies listed. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. First reading. Yes, that was the first reading. Okay, now move on to board comments. Anything from the board?
I have one, I'm curious to see how, if we've done a review of the food service, I mean, I made a change. 3 years ago, 2 years ago? Yeah. We're just curious how that's been received by students. I know they talked about a lot of things that they were gonna do in there, just kind of done those things. Just, or we haven't. I think our contract's gonna go up for renewal here next year.
You know, there's been some discussions through SIAC with some of those things. And you guys have had good working relationships, so good feedback. Is there any other further board comments? Excuse me. Seeing none, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Probably moved and seconded, meeting is adjourned. We are going to cancel the exempt session this evening because they're moving on with good progress for negotiating. That's all for tonight's meeting. We'll move into the work session shortly. I'll call to order this board work session with Charles City Community School District at 6:31 p.m. Discussing facilities and improvement planning, and I'll turn the floor over to you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. If you want to start us off with any words or anything, and then I can.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've had a chance to work with Matt for the last 12 years in Sioux City on a variety of different schools, 4 school projects, but I also had a chance to work with him on, he helped remodel our career academy system. So he took a call center, 50,000 square feet or something, and really renovated it into a really nice learning place for kids. In addition, I gave him a hard time because he, on the construction academy, he used the Fleet Farm colors.
Yeah,
It's pretty nice. It looks pretty nice. When I said Fleet Farm, he'd look hurt there. But it looked lovely, and kids had a great facility to learn in. So I've had a chance to work with him on a lot of projects. I also worked with several other architects in Sioux City, and Matt by far distinguished himself with great communication, follow through. So did a lot of great things. And so I'm fortunate that the board agreed to let us kind of begin this conversation and begin this work. And so looking forward to hearing what you guys have to share.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Burnett. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure working with Dr. Burnett at that time, and we did a lot of work. Before I get too far into it, by the way, I'm Matt Basie, architect with FEH Design. I'm one of the senior partners in the firm. Been there for almost 30 years, been working on educational projects for almost 35. So I have a lot of experience, also have a lot of teachers in my family, so I'm kind of the misunderstood one of all of our group. I've got some colleagues here with me tonight also. Chris Wand is an associate with FEH Design out of our Dubuque office. He'll be helping me with the architectural portion of the project. And then we're very fortunate to have Bill Decker, who is a former teacher, former school administrator, former AEA chief in Iowa, and now he has joined the design side of the education work that we're doing. He was a client of mine for how long was it? Since '99. We probably worked on 5 or 6 projects together over that time, and I'm happy to have him with me now. He brings a very valuable service to the district as well. We have offered, anytime you have any questions about anything in the educational realm, whether it's design or not, Bill is there to help. So if that's something you'd like to avail yourselves of, we're happy to do that. We are here tonight to talk with you about some of the board's priorities and goals for this process and projects that may develop from it. We have already been doing some work with the district as a matter of background. So we've had several meetings already with a couple of your board members, with administration. We just had our second listening session with teachers groups was tonight before this meeting. So we've been getting some background and some feedback as to what's been going on across the district over the last few years when you've been doing some facility planning work. We have several things that we're going to talk with you tonight. Can someone help me with this, putting it up on the screen? So it's item number 1 in my file there. And that's the one. I think that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. First thing we want to do is give you a little bit of information about what our process is, how we work through things to get to a position where we can help you put together a really robust and flexible facilities improvements plan that's going to be not only for the projects that are being planned right away, but also used in a way as a master plan for moving forward. So should there be funding issues and you can't do everything all at one time and you need to make phases out of a plan, we want to put something together that's useful for more than just this particular use. We do that in almost all of our projects because we find when we do planning, it's often the result of a lot of people's time and effort, and it may be the only chance they get to do projects like this because they're very large, complicated, and expensive. And my thinking is that we should do a little bit of more foresight and think a little bit ahead as much as we can So that we're putting you in a good position for later on as well, should things come up that need to be addressed. Also, another one of our design tenets here that is very important to me is designing space that's flexible. You all know how after many years living in a building like you have, it can be difficult to administer curriculum when you've got technology needs, space needs, and that's because the building ages. It doesn't perform the same way that it did. Curriculums change, teaching methods change. I'm very committed to looking extensively at how we design things that are flexible and that can be serviced for a long period of time and can be used for a long period of time and have some changes made to them along the way. What we don't want to do is get into a situation where you've got a huge investment in something that you can't use very well because it's not flexible. So that's something that I'm very interested in. I'll talk a little bit more about this as we go through tonight, but the first thing that I would like to do, and this is kind of the information gathering stage of the process that we're in. I would like to have you all share with us a little bit of the history of where you've come from in facilities planning. We have spoken to Dr. Burnite, a couple of the board members, your building and grounds director, about how things came to be when you had a bond referendum before, some of the decisions that were made, how they were made. All of that kind of thing is important to us because we realize that you don't have very many chances to deal with this kind of thing. It's a really big deal. It's a really big issue. I like to understand where you've come from so I can help chart where you're going to go. There's always useful information in what you've done before. And good ideas come from a lot of places. Our task is to look at where you've come from, take the good bits from that, add some more insight, some more information because time has passed, and adapt the plan so that we'll be successful now. So that's kind of where we're heading. And the first item that I have here says brief history of previous facilities. That says district input. I really like to get some discussion going here about what all of your thoughts are on how you got to where we are. And just for your background and understanding, some of the information that we're already aware of. So if you refer to some of the things, we will understand what you're talking about. We have reviewed the past referendum campaign information and materials that were used last time and in the past. There was also staff input that was requested during that last process. We think that's important too, so we've looked at that, along with gathering new perspectives from the teachers that we have now in those last couple of meetings we've had. We understand that there's been some planning done on the mechanical and electrical systems in the buildings, and there was an assessment done. We have reviewed that. We also had asked for some other facilities information from Jerry, your director of buildings and grounds. He was able to provide quite a bit of information to us. He has some planned summer projects. Those are important to us to know what you're already thinking about going ahead with. We got the existing building plans from him. We also have a lot of information. Many of you know that throughout the year, different professionals come and look at the building for different reasons. The fire marshal comes, other groups come and do reports for you. ICAT report was included. That's from some work that was planned previously. Asbestos reports, roof replacement, and warranty information. All of that information is good background for us to start with. So we have reviewed all of those things, most of those things. So how would you like to start this discussion on where you've been? What are some of the things that maybe were a concern to you from the process that we've used before? Maybe some opportunities that you see in the future that you've drawn from the processes that you've gone through before. Anybody want to start with a little discussion there?
Matt, quick question on your brief history of things you've had access to. Have you also been able to see the previous plans that were done when the middle school was created and then
Yes,
the
yeah.
previous high school? Okay.
Yeah, we've been pretty thoroughly versed in the referendum accounts, the building projects that have been done, some projects that are planned that are coming up that you're talking about. Again, that mechanical electrical survey that was done. We've walked through the building and had a tour of all the facilities, high school and middle school. So yeah, we've got a pretty good background so far of what's going on.
We also had Jerry mark on the plan rooms that were different use than what was on the plan before. So we have an idea of how spaces are actually being used.
From the middle school.
High school primarily.
Primarily high school at this point.
Then last week I worked with Brian and high school principal Levi to do a space utilization of your high school. So to know like how well your school is being utilized right now. So you're not, if first of all, if there needs to be any transition, we need to know, are there places where kids can go while something else is being renovated or replaced? And second of all, we need to make sure that we're not out here building something that you don't need based on the size of your classes.
So yeah, so to start with, we'd like to understand, where you've come from. So give us your impressions about how we got where we are. Anything that you felt was hindering success, anything that you take away that we really need to look at going forward, opportunities, I would call them. Anything like that would be helpful based on where you started.
So I could start, we've spoke already once.
Yeah.
I'll just touch on a few things we said. As a community, it tends to be a very emotional, sentimental community. There was issues between the old middle school to the new middle school. We've seen issues with courthouse, all these things. There's definitely a desire to see improvements throughout the community. There's no doubt that goes through everyone. It's just a matter of which levels. As far as a lot of the feedback I've received as far as on our last attempt, it was a big lack of transparency or consistency in the story, whether it was a certain group talking different ways or how things were going to be handled. My personal, at that time, was wanting to know the phases of the projects and how the money would be spent, and you can never seem to get this same story as we've talked, right? Consistency and transparency. So that's something that, as we've discussed, is going to be a high priority for me.
Critical, okay.
As we move forward.
Yeah.
I sat in on your listening session. I was very happy to hear you repeat the same things that we had heard in the meeting we had together. That it is very crucial that the staff has the utmost say right away to hear what their thoughts are, because they are going to be our biggest pushers of the group. And
right.
That to hear you continuously tell everyone I've heard you meet with, if you ever feel unheard, make sure you come back and I hear you, because I want to hear everybody openly. So that's been very
appreciate that. Thank you. Anybody else? I can respond to a couple of those things with some experience. We have passed many bond referendums in the past, and I will say that you're not unique in some of the issues that you have in front of you. There's always emotional issues, financial issues, matters of practicality, matters of timing, matters of how we're actually going to do this and educate our kids through it. All of those things are valid. Everyone that has an opinion is valid to us. And through this process, what I hope happens is that we continue to treat everyone in a way that they understand that we are sensitive to that. What I tell people is this is a big, hairy thing that we're doing, and it's got a lot of parts and pieces to it. So what I hope people come away with from, even if they don't get exactly what they wanted, that they were heard and that they understand that we know that's a priority to some people. We know that when we do these projects, they also come with a price tag. And in the real world, that's what matters. you know, you can get what you can pay for. Our job is to get as many of those things that you've identified for us as priorities off the list as fast as we can. Because costs are going up every day, needs aren't changing, more needs are coming on. All of that is part of this process. So if someone says to us, well, there's a sacred cow here, there's something that we can't mess with. We're gonna deal with that without the emotion. We're gonna deal with it like it's a fact, it's a matter to deal with. We're gonna let people tell us the emotional side of it. And we're gonna say, we heard that and it makes a difference. We're gonna put all of the issues that we go through in priority order. And we're gonna try to get as many of those taken care of as we can. No one will get everything that they want out of this process. There's just too many things to do with too many people involved. But it's our job to get as many of them done as we can, as quickly as we can. So we are gonna have some issues that come up that are difficult. We're gonna have to say to people, okay, let's think about this. Let's try to get the emotion out of it. Let's try to think of it in a way, you know, what's gonna benefit the most students in this district the fastest. So there's a lot of approaches that we can take to try to take away some of those difficult parts, because I think if you look at it that way and you know there's a plan and you know that the people that are doing the plan value all the priorities, not just some of them, then we can help you plan for into the future as well, beyond whatever gets built. When this referendum passes, we could plan for that kind of thing. So it's very important to me that everybody understands that. Everybody that I work with, I want to make sure they know that. I don't have any preconceived notions. Chris doesn't have any preconceived notions, and Bill doesn't. We're going to take the information that you give us. We're not going to push one direction or the other unless it makes sense with what we're hearing from you as far as need. There will always be evaluation there too. We've got to evaluate what makes more sense than this or whatever. So that's a little bit more about the way that I approach it. And I'm trying to make sure that every group we meet with knows that. So I appreciate your comments there. So with that being said, any other things that, from a board perspective, another thing, forgive me if I don't know where everybody else is in the process here. I've talked to some of you and not some of you, so I don't want to leave anything out. You may all have your own priorities, and we're going to work with those, but you are the Board of Education. So our primary responsibility is to make sure that whatever gets done is based on the direction of the board. You are responsible for understanding what your constituents want, and we want you to give us that information so we can help you achieve the plan. But we won't have any preconceived notions about it. We'll go into it with an open mind. We'll tell you what we think the best idea is with our experience, and we'll come up with a good plan. So that's a little bit more from me. I don't want to talk the whole time, so feel free to jump in anytime. It really is, I prefer it to be a discussion more than anything else. So also, whatever you're thinking now, you don't want to say it's going to get said at some point. So we could talk about anything. There isn't anything that we want to hide from anybody or have anything out there that we don't know is an issue. So anybody else have any comments?
That being said, we need all sides of the spectrum here. You're absolutely against it, absolutely for it, auditorium, no auditorium. These guys need to know everything up front. Whether it's a personal or constituent, if we can't voice it to them, they can't serve us the best, so. You're aware there was an auditorium proposed in the last one. There are many different opinions.
Yeah.
We heard tonight in listening session, there was desire for something, whether it be a multi-purpose space, an auditorium, a theater, whatever it may be. We've heard things like not the Cadillac, but don't forget it. There's lots of good feedback, but there are a lot of folks in this town that will tell you, it was good enough school for me. It's good enough for their kids. It'll be fine. We definitely need a facelift of some sort here, whether it's one of the highlights when you guys came in was that you didn't push brand new construction right up front. It was, we'll work with whatever you guys want to do. We can renovate, we can. I think you spoke that day we first met that one of the coolest things you've seen Matt do is make it look brand new construction, look like it was 100 years old. It fit right into the scheme. So
The three board members that we didn't speak to earlier. I was actually a high school principal in 1999. I got the job and we were just starting to work on passing a bond referendum to renovate and add on to a school that is eerily similar to this school. We had hexagons instead of circles, but Matt, as Bruce said, Matt did a phenomenal job of adding on, matching to make it look like it belonged, creating some new spaces that were phenomenal for kids, but also renovating parts of the existing school and really changed the culture of our school. I mean, it was actually incredible to see how kids responded to a community making an investment in them. So yeah, it's something that, you know, I've passed 6 bond referendums as a superintendent, and those are working with FEH. And, you know, you heard it from Dr. Burnite. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'm sitting here voluntarily. I wouldn't be sitting here if Matt wasn't going to do good work for this community and for you as board members.
Anybody have anything else you want to add at this point? I want to watch our time because I know we've all got time pressure, so, but I really do want to have, you know, anything that you have to say.
So if you think about the last bond referendum, what were some things that were done well? And what were some things that maybe were hindrances to it not passing? Why did the community propose it? Like it was a bond referendum. Community had to have some sort of input into it showing up on the ballot, but then also the community voted it down. So what are some of those reasons on both sides of that?
Money.
So too much money?
Too much involved, too much tax increase or perceived, whatever the case may be. Okay.
Yeah, the way it was split was like a $27 million bond. The way it was broken down on the ballot itself too, and how it was in the plan was 13 of that would go to an auditorium, 13 of that would go to the renovations. Immediately the misconception was, why is this new thing getting 13 and everything else for the majority is just gonna get like 13? So they're gonna get this really cool thing and then the rest of us are just gonna get the bigger amount. And so since whatever, a couple of years ago, now there's some of that's been changed, you know, some projects have been done, so then and I think there's been a lot of genuine kind of like, okay, maybe the voters didn't in fact want to support the auditorium. We can live with that decision. So in a way it was good. I mean, it's not common for these things to get passed on the first go around. And I think that was kind of a, like we maybe some people were optimistic because it's like, oh, maybe we'll be the community that passes on the first go, but that's like very, very fair.
Yeah.
So it's good to do those things in a way, even though it's a lot of work to do those type of projects to get the feedback.
Yeah.
And so now the question is like, if the voters say they didn't want to pay for the auditorium, is that true? Or did they just use that as an excuse to not want to support anything?
Right.
And the conversations amongst some community members now does seem to be, we want to see something happen. That's
So
true or not,
then-
so it's just like,
Yeah, some of
it always
it
goes
is,
on to that November, whatever they choose.
right, some of it is the way that it's explained.
Mhm.
It's always hard when you have a split like that it's gonna be misunderstood. Another thing is, you know, the way the financing works, you can, if you need more money, you have to have a 2-question ballot instead of a 1-question ballot. All of those things we're gonna talk through, because there's pros and cons to everything when we do it. Many people say to me, oh, we don't wanna have a 2-question vote because it's too complicated. It is complicated, but one of the things that I think that we do really well is once we hone in on a plan and we have it, we are very good at gaining consensus from everybody that was involved in it and explaining it in a consistent way. So I think one of the things that Bruce mentioned was the story seemed to change. That's a killer when you're trying to pass something like that. And I think I said to the board members we talked to before, one of the things that I hope that we get to when we go to the bond referendum is that we know all the questions that are gonna be asked at of time. And we can do that. We know how to do that. It just takes work, you know? And that doesn't mean that you have to know all the answers and answer them affirmatively. It just means you have to know what you're talking about. So that when you do run into a person that is skeptical, you can say, well, if you'd like me to explain, and then whoever they talk to, they're gonna get the same information. So that's really important to us too, is to make sure that, because if you don't do that, even in the best circumstances, it can seem like you're hiding something or it's not transparent, when it's really not true. It's just a complicated issue that's not getting explained consistently and well.
Yeah, and these guys weren't, well, David was here, these guys, so we just had taken on new superintendent and interim superintendent. Previous superintendent had left on not great terms. There was already some misconceptions, I don't know, about how mistrust, how administration at the very top was managing finances and the numbers that were being shared to the community. And so then it put us in a difficult financial position. So then there were cuts that had to be made. And so the department that really took a lot of that brunt of the conversation was the fine arts department. And there was a big public meeting where it was like a 3-hour. So I mean,
yeah,
right away, there was some current, and then the leadership in that position may have struggled with that pressure from the outside, you know, and so then all of a sudden we're trying to have this conversation about like, well, we're gonna pass this bond and we're gonna do this auditorium, and then it's like, well, 4 months ago, you're trying to cut those positions, so then it all of a sudden, you know, so it was.
All that
not a
adds
perfect
up to a
storm.
pretty tough
Yes.
scenario.
yeah, it does.
So you're trying to get to know a new person, a new leadership position, you're trying to acknowledge, we did try to cut these positions, but now we're gonna try to do this auditorium. So I think going back to the mixed it just felt like there were a lot of mixed messages out there because there were a lot of stories trying to get resolved at the same time.
Well, I think you have a similar outcome, and I don't know all the details, but I know in town there have been several bond referendums for different things. And I think what happens there is, and it makes sense that people tend to think of those things as a whole together, when really they have nothing to do with each other, because it's a different entity, a different funding mechanism, it's different needs, it's different timing, all of that kind of thing. So whenever I run into an issue like that, my standard way of handling that is, we understand that this can be difficult to understand. Our position is that your school board has said, we need this. It doesn't have anything to do, not that it doesn't matter, but it doesn't have anything to do with what else is going on out there. So our position remains consistent. We're not competing with that other thing. We're not trying to explain what happened before, because that wasn't us. What we're trying to do is keep on our message. And if you have a message of need that you can explain, you'll be successful most of the time, because most people want to support that. Most people have kids that someone put them through school by paying for what they have. So that's kind of the way that we look at the message and try to filter out the noise. Doesn't mean it's not important, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't understand it, because you can learn something from that. But staying on the message, having a good plan, staying on the message and being consistent is what we try to do. So if those were problems, and it sounds like they were, I am committed to not having that particular scenario happen as much as we can.
Yeah, I think a lot of good feedback and just conversation came out how it needed to happen to get what it was. Doesn't change the fact that the building continues to age, so people recognize that.
Right, and the discussions that we've been having so far have been very consistent. It's clear to us that there are people that are very invested in a particular need. And there are some that are more invested in the overall district need. And we want to try to make a plan for that.
I think that's an important part of this process, to talk about the long-term plan. Not necessarily in detail about what's gonna happen in Washington and Canada, but we're gonna build an auditorium in a year or 10 years. But then the priority, number one priority is high school innovation project. That's the most important thing. That's the first thing we have to do. That's what this bond is gonna do, is focus on the renovation of this building. And then the second project, whatever that may be with funding that we have, or funding we get, pay off things, this would be the next project that we want to tackle, based on what we know today. Right? Now, that can change, but just helping people understand that those people who have interest in other things, we hear what you're saying, but this has to be the first project, and then your project is 3 or 8 or 7 on the list, whatever it is.
Right.
So then people have some idea of, okay, I know that that's gonna happen at some point.
Right.
You use the term master plan, so I think, priority, whatever you wanna call it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. And I think that another one of our strong messages is whatever the condition of what we're sitting in now was an investment. This is something that we can't just throw away. That's why I talk about renovations, alterations, that kind of thing. That's a necessary and almost impossible to avoid way that schools get redesigned. We don't throw away everything and start all over each time because you have an investment here. And we know that. And so we want to also focus on, what business are you in? And that's educating the kids. We got to have a core to start from. So if you have a building that's failing, whether it's space or deterioration or whatever it might be, you need to build up that core first. And you've got a core here. And we're going to look at that. We're going to tell you, these are the things that are probably hindering you from continuing to use it. Space needs, you can't do this curriculum in that space anymore. It just doesn't work. You've got this extra space that now we can use, that space to free up. That's going to be cheaper than building everything new. So it really is, it's a very involved, kind of intricate look at who you are and what you have. And then we try to put it back together in something that, again, touches as many people as we can with whatever your priorities are as a district.
It's also really important, none of us were born when this happened, but when the middle school was built, a lot of decisions were made without the community input, and that there was a lot of people who were upset with that decision. And then somebody mentioned it tonight, but I don't remember who it was, if there was a ping pong going on where somebody would say, hey, we want to do this, and they would say, oh, go talk to the builders, oh, go talk to the leadership, and they never really got an answer on where that fell, if that was going to get done or not. And that really upset people as well. So you talked about at the beginning of this conversation of hearing everybody and making sure that they feel heard and that we understand their perspective, but that their ideas may not make it into the final design, but we understand their perception and what's important to them.
Right.
And that's a really important part of this because we are a community and getting their input to do this is going to be a huge part of it. We don't have their support.
Yeah. I think most of the time, these guys can tell me if they think I'm off base here. When we use a process like this, almost always the people that are the stakeholders have an idea of what should be done. But they don't really know what that means. They don't really know why. It's more of an opinion really than a fact, right? We're trying to put the framework together. So if someone tells us we need this, or we got to do this. Well, what I hear there is there's a need there that someone, let's see how many people think that first of all. Then if we do that, we say, okay, well, there's a lot of ways to do that. Will this work? Will this work? Will this work? So, and a good idea can also come from anywhere. So someone might think, we need this. We could change that into something else that also deals with another issue that someone else has. So that's our expertise and our experience is to do that part of it, is to put it all together. So if any of you feel like I don't know how they're gonna do that. Don't worry about it. That's what the process is for. We don't either right now, sitting here today. But I know we will when we're done with this, because we've done it. We've done it before. We've done it under harder circumstances. We've done it with a lot of different people that weren't getting along. And that's not even really what's going on here. There's just a lot of reflecting going on right now about where we came from and what we, so.
I guess I can say from previous experience that this conversation has not been done with previous entities that we.
Good.
To give, sorry, to give a little insight for the three of you that weren't here during their listening session, just a props to you guys for how quick and detailed you were. We heard a staff member point out something as what would seem as minor to me as a projector and the way they use them in the classrooms. I don't work with that stuff every day. I don't know anything about it. The staff had explained that they use them on carts and didn't care for the way they worked on carts. They prefer them on the ceilings. In a matter of seconds, these two gentlemen instantly clarified were they in favor of the ones on the ceilings or on the carts, and then came up with an option of something like a smart board or a TV screen. I was not expecting that minute of details in the first conversation, and they were on top of it. So props to you.
One of the things that Bruce talked about a little bit ago that I think does need to be flat out on the table is that idea that I went to school here and in a community this size, and again, I was superintendent of schools in a couple of communities that wouldn't have been too far in population. A lot of people went to school here. And so that idea of I went to school here, this school was good enough for me. Why do we need this? Well, you know, when we took a tour during spring break, we saw some structural damage in the 400 circle. We saw tiles that are popping up. So, you know, what's going on underneath those tiles? We saw skylights that were covered up. And so there's a pretty high likelihood this is not the same kind of environment that the folks that are saying this school is good enough for me, it's not the same environment now. Actually, there's some pretty cool things in the design of this school that are not present any longer. So a student can go a long time in the day without seeing any natural light in this facility. And, you know, there's a lot of studies that that's not a good thing for kids or adults, really, for that matter as well. That wasn't the case when this building was built. There was natural light, but it's not there anymore because those things have been covered up over time. So it's not the same building. You can't say this was good enough for me, so it's good enough for them. Well, it's not the same building as it used to.
And we'll take a lot of those types of attitudes or thoughts head on. Because I mean, we all know that everybody has their reasoning for whatever the reasons are, and they're valid. We're just gonna try to shine a light on some of that so that everybody's really evaluating against what is important. And that is, can we educate our children in the facilities that we have the way that we need to? So that's, you know, that's at the end of the day. I think that's what you want as a board. I think that's why you're sitting there. And that's what we want. And I know that's what the kids want. So, you know, that's very important to us. Anything else you wanna talk about? These are common things that we heard too, just so you know, not at the board level. These same things were talked about with the teachers, with the administrators. So what's good about that is we can start to form a picture here. We can see what are the things we're gonna have to solve, what are the things we're gonna have to be cognizant of, and what are the things we're gonna have to have an answer for. And that's gonna go into the plan. So I say that just so you guys also know, because you're at a different, you know, everybody's got their responsibilities and everything. But that's fairly common, what we've heard so far. Let's move on just because of timing here. I wanted to also talk to you a little bit about the process. So right now we're in the process that we refer to as pre-bond referendum service. And that is doing this information gathering, having these discussions, trying to hone in on what our priorities and goals are as a board and as a district, so that we can help put some actual facilities needs down on paper. So you can start to see, you've told us these things, here's how we think we can solve that or deal with it. So that's what we're doing right now. That process, we have scheduled several meetings with different groups over from March until your board meeting on June 9th. We are hopeful that we can have a plan put together for you all to look at that board meeting. It is not critical that we do it at that board meeting. I just think it gives us a little bit more time, and that's when summer starts, so it's a little bit less on people's radar over the summer. We could go into your July board meeting, should you have one and should we want to. And what we did here on the schedule is we worked backwards from the bond referendum date. And that is November 4th this year. It's actually Tuesday. So if we hold this schedule and we come up with our plan, that's going to give you about 3 months for marketing of the plan to the community. So what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it. And that's another process that I'll talk to you a little bit about more as we get closer to it. So the process and the schedule for the pre-bond referendum work. The elements really are gathering information from all stakeholders. When we say stakeholders, that's anybody that uses the building. Community members, anybody that paid for it, anybody that's charged with taking care of it, anybody that's working here, anyone is a stakeholder. And we want to know what they think the district's needs are, so that we can inform you what they're saying. And then you can put that into your process and match that up with what your goals and priorities are as a board for the district. And the big deliverable that comes out of this process is that facilities improvement plan. What that looks like is it's going to be a set of plans that show what facilities we think you will need to address the needs that we've decided on. And there's going to be some written information in the form of a booklet that has a lot of the information that we used during the marketing of the referendum campaign. And it will have a lot of information in there that has hopefully many of the questions that have come up answered, so that we can use those going into that campaign. We also want to stress again that there will be a budget. Obviously, the district will be able to raise a certain amount of funds by a certain amount of bond questions that are voted on. And so we'll have a plan for that. If we cannot, or we think we can't achieve everything at the first go round, we want to make sure that we have a future plan or a master plan that maybe shows some development in the near future or phase over time that you can use as a district going forward. And our purpose for that is not to say that this is what you'll do by this date, but it's to be a plan that is flexible enough that it can change with times and with board turnover and with changing needs of the district. So we will identify as many things as we can and put those in the report for you. It's also to begin planning for the bond referendum campaign. So many times when we do this, we have a lot of individuals that are passionate about this and understand that this district has needs and want to help you get that information out there. So when we do go into the bond referendum process, there's going to be members of the community that we need support and help from. There's going to be members of the staff, administration, and the board all working together to market that referendum campaign. So we're starting that effort here with what we're doing. And it's also to provide information for use in the marketing of the bond referendum itself. So there'll be plans and financial information and that type of thing that can be used. So that's the general process and schedule. The goals of the process, there are several. And as I said before, what we're trying to do here is develop a clear, achievable, and flexible facilities improvement plan. We'll see what that looks like, but that is a main goal. Also in this process, one of the keys to success is that consensus building. So that everybody knows what you're doing and why you're doing it. Those are the most important questions to answer. We're also gonna start developing that consistent message for you to use as you talk to people about their support for the referendum. And we, as I said, we want to answer as many questions as we can up front for ourselves, so we know what's coming. And then, if you could switch to that second, document that I add. So these are, there's a separate agenda and a bunch of tasks involved with the pre-bond referendum. We've already accomplished some of them. You can see we started on March 3rd with the contract with you all. We're already down to March 24th. So we've already done our observations and tour of the building. We've been gathering information from Jerry about the buildings themselves, the plans and that kind of thing. Just finished our second meeting with teachers, listening sessions. And we're discussing administration goals and priorities with Dr. Brunite and his team. And tonight we are reporting a little bit about what we found so far. We've already discussed the history of the facilities planning a little bit. And then we're going to talk about your goals and priorities in a minute. We are planning on issuing a community survey. The survey so far has been designed as a follow-up survey to the previous referendum. So people have had some time to think about it now. There's some demographic information in the survey. And then there's some specific questions about why or why not did not support that plan before. We are going to, in just a minute, show you what that survey looks like and get some input from you on that. And we're trying to send that out in the next couple of days so that we can get some information back before your board meeting on April 9th. And we can report some back to you at that time. So we're going to show you that in just a minute. We're also going to be doing a focus group that was requested by the administration and a couple of your board members on your facilities committee. And that is to invite some people in to talk with them about their needs, their perspective on all of this. So we'll be doing that soon. And then I will go through all of this, but there's several board meetings, several facilities committee meetings that are planned here to take us all the way through that June 9th timeframe. So you can look through that if you'd like to, and just kind of gives a broad overview of what our process is for getting through this pre-bond referendum services portion of the project.
A quick question. So when you had the 2 listening sessions for staff, did you get feedback, or did Dr. Burnett get feedback from anybody that said they couldn't attend but really wanted to?
We did get several instructors talk with their groups of teachers in their curriculum and brought those to us.
Okay.
So we had a couple tonight that did that. I'm not aware if anyone said they couldn't make it.
That was one of the teachers who was a track coach. So I had the athletic director offer to cover track practice. And he then expressed that he had shared his concerns with Brian, who then shared those at the.
Yeah, and if you're willing and would like to, we're willing to take input by email.
Okay.
For anybody that couldn't be here. So if they, and even if it's duplication, that's okay. We'll kind of put it together in a little report, but if you'd like to do that, you can. I think were there just 2 or 3 teachers the first, but we had some staff from the building. So I think it was a dozen.
Yeah.
Maybe from the
maintenance
first one.
folks, as well as a special ed teacher who had actually talked to a number of the other special ed teachers before she came to the meeting. So she brought their input, and then tonight we had a teacher who came with comments from like 10 or 12 other.
Yeah, but one of the whole wing around.
Yeah, we had
The whole
the
500 circle.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so we got.
If you as a board don't feel like that's enough, I mean, I personally would be willing to come back and actually be here throughout a day, and so teachers could in their planning period could give us more, but I mean, we have a pretty good representation because they talk to other folks.
I guess if you're willing to express your, or share your email, then maybe they can share, because I know one of the meetings was during spring break.
Right?
So then that might have hindered somebody, or maybe they felt that maybe there wasn't a follow-up opportunity.
Yeah, we thought that might be the case. This just came up so quickly that
Yeah.
we were trying to get in there.
But yeah, either if
we
you want to
can
come
do
back in person or email, you know, that
Sure.
you might get some more genuine or
that. You
detailed.
bet. Yeah, we can do that.
Not everybody's willing to speak up in a group.
Or just like they couldn't make it, or just, you know, wanted to make sure that their quick opinion was heard, but maybe there's more to be elaborated on.
You know, Levi, do you think we could do Zoom in on a Wednesday too?
Yeah, that's always enough.
With the staff, with that, because we have the staff together on Wednesdays for the high school.
Sure.
Do a Zoom.
Yeah.
We could do a Zoom.
You can be flexible with that.
Yeah.
I do think since the spring break, that might have hindered some.
Yeah, we were aware of that, just.
I mean, it was good to like make connections, but
I mean, even today, when it's after school, people have obligations and
sure, yeah.
stuff going on. So if there's a way we can work it to be a part of the school day where, you know, we're giving people a few minutes to talk about it during their day, we're gonna get more input than we make it be.
And now it's gonna be fresh on their minds, so now you're gonna get even more conversation happening again.
And that would work with an early release Wednesday, because we have a early release Wednesday, so we could do that.
Okay, we'll plan on that
I'll get
then.
together with you. Yep, sounds good.
Thank you for doing that.
So one of the things that will need to be done, or that we recommend to be done, as we work through this process, is that the district would form a facilities committee. Many times a district has a facilities committee of the board already in place. Sometimes they don't, but, and those individuals, if they are on that committee, would be kind of the basis for that committee. But we would also like to extend that then to some at-large members, members of the administration, maybe staff, maybe some community members that would be primarily responsible for working with us through this process, just so we can streamline things a little bit. The process that we worked out here was each of the board meetings that you have between now and that June 9th, we will be back to give you an update on what we're doing, have done, and what we're gonna be doing next. So you will always have the opportunity to know what we're doing. You also have those facility committee members of the board that could inform you as we're working through it. I believe you have a facilities committee of the board, correct? And so we would propose, if you're willing, to maybe extend that and add a few more members to that committee. Obviously, it can't be board members because you've got to respect the rules around the meetings and things, but we would like to see, obviously, your superintendent, your principals are good people to be on a committee like that. Also, if you have some head instructional teachers or coaches or people that are responsible for departments, those are people that may be good because they have a good perspective on a large group of people. And then maybe some, if you know any community members that might be interested or good to help us in the time that have history in the community and to have some understanding of your district's goals and facilities, that kind of thing.
And I think it's really important on that committee that we get community members who are very much for the project. In any capacity and are willing to go tell other people. People's opinions have influence in the community, you know, maybe it's.
Right.
This person or make it, or that is.
Yeah.
Or tell her grocery store, you know, whoever. You know, there's a guy that has a Steelers jacket at Hy-Vee that tells everybody his story. He'd be a great person to have. He gets to tell everybody about everything.
Right, right. Yeah, this is a good point that you make, Josh, and that is that the people that are on this committee are the seedlings for the next committee, which is the bond referendum marketing and continuing on through the rest of the project. So that's a great idea to do that. So think about those people. We would suggest that you do this fairly urgently because we are in the process already. But personal invites to a few that you all think would be good to join you on that committee. And then that group will be the primary group that we work with through the pre-bond referendum process and into the referendum process. So there's obviously a time commitment, meetings. We like those people to be available for most, if not all of the meetings. Because we have limited time to do this in, and there's a lot of information shared. We like to try to keep it maybe to 12 to 15 people, if that's possible. Otherwise, it gets a little bit difficult, scheduling and that kind of thing. The responsibilities here are, first is time, you know, when we need you, we need you on this situation. So attend all, if not all, as many meetings as you can, provide input, review progress, recommend options to the board when we get to that point, for the board's ratification and approval when we get the facilities committee put together. And then, as we were just talking, continue into the bond referendum campaign as leaders or advisors for that. So if you would think about that a little bit, I'll check in with Dr. Burnite in a few days, and we'll see how we're doing on that. Our next meeting would be scheduled for that April 9th. So that would be the time frame that we're looking to have that facility put together. And then we'll be going over some information with them at that time. The next thing on our agenda here is the community survey. I'm going to have Chris go over this with you. We have put together a draft survey.
And real quick on the committee, I know there's a number of us that all, obviously we can't have more than two.
Right.
It's something we can do as a rotational thing so that one of us gets a chance, or say in an event where I'm on the facilities committee and I can't be there that day.
Yep.
Can I allow a different board member to fill my seat that night?
You can do anything you want as long as you follow the rules for your
more than two.
Or you can have more than two.
Yeah,
You
you
just have
can
to.
always on it if you want
Just have to know.
to. It would just have to be a board meeting.
So it can be like a work session, it has to be announced, that's all, like
Right.
everybody can come to every meeting.
Right.
It just have to be announced, so we can't talk about the city can't make any decisions at the, it just has to be on topic of basically information.
So I would look at that as, your role as a board member, you can't influence in that capacity, but you're free to have your opinion as a member of the committee and some of the pays taxes in the district and that kind of thing. So just kind of think of it that way. Anytime you get three of you together, you gotta be careful about what you do, but that would be perfectly appropriate if you know, as long as you publish.
Are you thinking you want to have these meetings during the day, in the evening, early mornings?
I think once we know the makeup a little better, we can schedule that. Obviously, I'm 3.5 hours away, so this gets a little late for us, but we're gonna make it work. And I know it might be hard for some of you to get off during the day or that kind of thing, so. Usually, we're talking about 90 minutes to 2 hours at a time, and there's probably 3 or 4 meetings we're talking about.
So I think just getting a commitment from individual people too is also going to take some
Right.
conversations. Somebody may say, we say, hey, we have a farmer, they're like, well, I'm gonna be planting in a week or two. and
Right,
I'm gonna be knee deep in work and I cannot commit to that kind of time.
right.
So, but we want their input for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess the other question, is it an opportunity for, remote, like a Teams or a Zoom? Where it would also save you guys from coming in, maybe
Yeah.
Chris comes over because it's close.
Yeah.
But you stay in Sioux City.
Thank you for mentioning that. I actually did put that on the other schedule I showed. There are 6 stars on that. Those are in-person meetings. The other one we were planning on doing virtually for some of them. I prefer to be in person with you as much as I can, but it is not always possible. So I appreciate that you mentioned that, and we can do that if it works better for everybody. There are some cases it doesn't. We can just play that as we go. After school, 3 to 5, 5 to 7, if it doesn't work for everybody else's schedules, that's the kind of time frame we might be talking about. And like I said, I think there's 3 or 4 of those. And I think I've scheduled some of them on your board meeting days too, so we just have to work out the timing and that kind of thing. So, please think about that, and thank you for those additions. Chris, will you bring up, item number 3, please? And we'll talk about the survey a little bit.
So we're actually calling this a post-referendum survey to kind of get what you were talking about, Catherine, as far as why did people vote for it, why did they vote against it? To really hone in on, is what we're hearing actually the truth? So as Matt mentioned, there are a couple of questions that are just kind of demographic questions, so we can understand who's filling out the survey, where they reside. So some of the communities that are in the district, as well as some of the rural or unincorporated areas.
I'll let you finish.
No, go ahead.
So I think it's important that you put at the beginning, you have a paragraph that talks about the information gathered in the survey will provide information to the board, you know, all comments and be received, but not everything's gonna be. It's really important that you say that to people so that you set that expectation of that. Okay, because if I read this, I think I put my thoughts in, I'm gonna get whatever I put in here.
Good point.
I know.
By the way,
It is, yeah.
this is a draft,
Yeah.
so absolutely, we welcome your input.
Right?
Did any of you see anything like that?
Yeah.
Speak up.
Any wordsmithing that you
So the second question, are we gonna send this out to students as well?
It will be disseminated in whatever form you want us to do it. We've had it
And
done
whoever.
before where it's gone on the district website and anybody that wants to fill it out can. We've done it where it's been put on your Facebook page. You can have hard copies available for people that want to fill out a hard copy instead. And we'll gather those survey responses as well and just tally them up with the rest. We can do it a number of different ways.
How do they get saved so you know somebody's not doing it twice?
So we can
I mean,
tie
the
that
IP.
directly to the IP addresses.
They can.
It's only one per house.
Yeah, one per IP address.
So you could change devices if you want.
It's like a cell phone, you tell someone else. it's
Yeah, you
okay.
could do it.
And we could put that in the instructions as well, so people understand.
Well, I mean.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking like,
I mean, I'll give you a list of them. Home internet, it's one
Just-
IP address. Yeah.
Is there a way you can
It's
do
all
it
come out the same.
in a paper format?
Drain.
Yeah.
It all goes.
Yeah, we have hard copies.
It's not like separate
no,
sewer.
We have a high level of elderly in the community.
Absolutely, and we would, we will help you distribute that in whatever format you have, so we can distribute it online, on your website, whatever. You can distribute it if you have a database or, you know, however we want to do it. You also have a relationship with Donovan Group, correct?
Right.
And they do this kind of thing as well, so you may have a database of yours that we can have them do it for you.
Yeah, we can provide them the questions and then put it in whatever form they typically use.
Can be paid, hard copy, you know.
The ones that have reached out to me just said, meet me inside the
Make sure I
IB
have
at the diner and as they're walking in, they'll fill it out for you. 'Cause you're gonna catch more that way.
If I have to go to Hy-Vee and Dave's, I can do that in the same week.
I mean, do we have a number of how many responders we want?
So it really kind of depends. We did one recently where we had 500 responses. And I think the Donovan Group survey that was done in the last referendum had about 700 responses, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
So, you know,
Not percent.
it's, when you look at an overall percentage, when you're just putting it out in the ether and asking people to respond, that's not bad. That's a pretty good response. You're not gonna get, you know, 50% of the population to fill it out, but if you can get 10 to 15% of the voters to fill it out, that's a pretty good response rate.
How many people voted in the last school board election? Do we know that number as correlate that to how many responses we got?
I don't know that yet. We will know it, but I don't know if you.
I don't have it memorized.
It's like under 5,000.
We will
So
definitely
we
be
only
getting that.
had a very
information.
500 with 5,000 voting is really a small sample. To me, my fear is it's not an accurate sample of.
Yeah, we know that with these surveys, you know, more negatives than positives usually. People are gonna say, this is why I didn't. With this format, we just have no way to, you know.
Any way you can mail it? I mean, I was just
One,
I mean.
1,051.
That would be half, I guess.
Half of them.
Yeah, you know, you could do a mailer. Yeah, we could do any type of dissemination you want to.
How expensive is it?
I don't know.
Well, I would say, you know, statistically, an N of half is
Yeah,
very
that's pretty good.
significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very significant.
Most surveys, if you get 10 to 15%, you're pretty good. So
Yeah.
if we're getting closer to 50%, that's a pretty good response rate. At least, you know, assuming you're getting.
Wait, correction,
It was just the yes votes. Total was, 2,000.
2,067.
Around.
4,500.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing, we could look at a number of different ways to get this information out there to try and gather as many responses as we can get. And again, the other thing to point out is the survey is just to get another piece of the puzzle. We're not gonna base everything on the survey. It's just more information. And what we found is the last question on here is just provide comments, relevant comments. I put in there, we'll save that back to what we get. But it's, what other relevant comments or information do you think the board should have when they consider what we're gonna do for the bond referendum? We can take that and we can come up with some common themes that come out of those comments, which has been really helpful just to kind of pinpoint, here's some of the common things we keep hearing. And it's interesting because they end up correlating what we've heard from the teachers, from staff, from the board members, et cetera, already. Kind of reinforces what we've already heard, but that's not always the case.
We just finished a very similar survey in another district, and those comments actually are more reflective than you might think they would be. They really do correlate with what's being said throughout the district.
Anything else before we kind of move on? So again, where you live, what's your age? So again, we've got 18 to 25 in there. If we want to put something lower in there in case somebody from the middle school or younger applies, we can. Do you have a child, grandchild, or great-grandchild who currently attends classes? Do you or a family member work for the district? And again, those are kind of just the demographics, get an idea of who's filling out the survey. Then we ask, did you vote on November 7, 2023? On the bond question, how did you vote? Yes, no. Not sure why, but other than.
I wonder if question number 5, you should clarify, like, if they may not have answered the yes or no bond question, they might have just voted, so did you vote on the bond question? Okay, there might be some like specific.
The school bond referendum.
I know, but it's like, we don't really care if they voted or.
Yeah.
We want to know,
That's a
like,
good
did they make a vote on the bond? If you can go to the ballot and not.
There we go.
3,210 total ballots cast and only 2,067 of them were voted on board members. So that's.
Yeah.
And just question 5 does focus specifically on whether or not they voted on the bond question. And then question 6, Bill had a good suggestion, the third one being prefer not to say. So if somebody doesn't want to answer that question, they can please move on to the next question. So the next question, these next 2 are the ones where probably need the most input. Next 3 actually. If you voted no on the school bond question, I put the no question first. So that we kind of have a little bit more positive note with the yes votes. If you voted no, what was the reason? And they can pick multiple reasons here. They're not just picking one. So it would raise tax dollars too much. I don't think an auditorium should be a top priority since that was part of the referendum last time. We thought that was a valid question to ask. The project is too expensive. I feel there are more pressing needs like teacher salaries or improved curriculum. I'm concerned about how previous district projects were designed and constructed. Again, I think it goes back to if people have a bad taste in their mouth, it's making them vote against it. My kids don't attend public schools. I don't want my tax dollars funding it. I don't think there is a clear long-range plan, which again goes back to what we've talked about. This one really needs to kind of focus on that. And then the last option, so they can move on to the next question, is I voted yes.
Can you scroll back up? Oh, thanks. I can read here.
Yeah.
So it's, I think word terminology here on number 7, the second option, I don't think another term should be a top priority. I think you should just change that instead of a top priority to maybe the first priority. Or I don't know what it is.
Or the top priority.
Yeah, because everyone's gonna, who really cares about the auditorium is gonna say it's a top priority. It's important to me. And it is important. But should it be the first and number 1 priority? That's the question. I think the high school renovation has to be first.
Or should it be part of the public funded bond? Maybe that.
I mean, I don't know. I think that's what.
Does it really matter if
This
they
just
voted no?
explains their no vote.
Right.
So
Really, the question is trying to get to the fact of did they vote no because the auditorium is part of it.
And was that?
Maybe word it that way. Is that because the
Did you vote on
auditorium part of the,
There you go.
yeah, just keep it simple.
That's getting right at it.
Yeah,
Or kind of what Josh just said, I mean, should there be a question of, I think there should be more of a district community partnership instead of the district paying for the whole.
Yeah, and as a total side note, I think that they're trying to do that, they're trying to raise through.
yeah, I think.
I think
Keep
you're
it
direct
simple,
route, yeah.
I don't want to pay for it.
It's the Catherine's way.
Well, I would say. You worded it.
Chris, did it use branching logic where if you click yes, it goes to a certain question or no, it goes to one?
No, so that's one of the reasons why we have under question 7, the
Yeah.
last one is I voted yes.
Right.
Under the yes one, it's I voted no.
Is that hard to add? Because I mean, you could do it in item forms, you could do it.
So it skips over question.
Yeah, so it just goes
Yeah.
right to the, if it's not too much trouble, I think that's nice for people and it doesn't even show the other.
So,
Although, I don't know, it's kind of a, like, bring some insight. Cause like reading that, I was impressed that you like took the time to come up with the answers, because it does make you kind of like think, even if you did vote, to know that those opinions exist for other people.
Sure, that leave it in, I defer to the.
I mean, that's just my thought.
And again, question 7 and 8, both from what we've already heard, what we saw from the previous surveys and the previous information that we've even gathered. But again, it's, if there are additional things we want to add or things we want to delete in those 2 questions, now is the time to do that, since we want to try and get it out fairly soon.
Right, I thought that same thing first, and then I thought, I did notice that they put, I voted yes, so then as a reader, it kind of does make you worse.
People vote yes.
I think your idea is really good if there's a really long
There's
segment.
more, yeah.
I mean, this is just
Yeah.
one question, one
Yeah,
question.
it's not worth it. That's sweet.
Anything else on question 7 that we should modify the verbiage or delete or add? Any other thing that we've heard you want to add to that list? We're going through those again. It would raise tax dollars too much. If you voted no, did you vote no because it included the auditorium? The project's too expensive, which seems similar to the first one, but it's a little bit different. Some people might be okay with their tax dollars going up, but just not this project because it was too expensive. I feel there are more pressing needs. I'm concerned about how previous district projects were designed in construction. My kids don't attend public schools. I don't think there is a clear long range. Anything else? Okay, sounds like we're all in agreement on that. And then if you voted yes, please indicate the reasons. And again, they can pick multiple things here. The high school needs to be updated, long-term cost savings, attract and retain teaching staff and students in the district, more safe and secure. You can put facilities at the end of that. And the new facilities improve educational effectiveness, or I voted no.
I wonder, this one is another one that I've kind of heard language for of like, I want our district to be competitive, or I want to be competitive with, or kind of, I want to like stand out. Look better than other districts, I don't know how you break that one.
Well, something, and we'll run it back through. As long as everybody's in agreement, they can look at it tomorrow when we send it out. And get back to us with comments right away, so we can get it on Wednesday and Thursday at the latest. Because again, we're gonna go, if people are gonna fill out the survey, they're gonna fill it out pretty fast. If it sits for a week, they're not gonna go back to it, they'll forget that it's out there. Even if you ping them a couple of times on it, so you're gonna get most of your responses fairly quickly the first week. And so we wanna have the results back in time.
So Dr. Burnett, if we get you these questions, is this something you would turn around and get them to the Donovan group, and then the Donovan group would send that link out? Is that how you?
Absolutely, that's how I envision it.
Okay.
Yep. And then we could try some other formats. Even if I have to eat for breakfast, okay.
Yeah.
Put on placemats at the restaurant.
Placemats, but I'm gonna go to the senior center.
QR code.
Yeah. Go there.
Yeah.
Okay. So that comment I'll put in, it'll be make our district competitive with other districts, or I'll figure out a way to word it to try and make that work. Okay. Anything else on that one?
Yeah. Do you want to add, I voted yes, because we need a new performance space?
Yeah, I did not put that in there.
Yeah,
I think if you're gonna give the voice to the no's for the reason they said no, you should probably give it the reason they said yes.
But you mean a fine art performance, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in that project, it was considered the auditorium or however you want to look at it, but
Yeah,
there are a handful that. That's 100% of the reason they voted yes, because they've been out for so many years.
Okay, good point. I saw that bullet in there as another option. And then, the last question, number 9, well, the last one before comments is, please choose the top priorities you feel the district should focus on. Again, this gets back to kind of a comment Catherine made about the auditorium, whether it was a top priority or not. So we've got ADA compliance, safety and security, reducing facility maintenance costs, additional gymnasium space. I don't know if that one's valid or not. An auditorium, attracting and retaining good teachers, improve traffic flow on parking.
Is there any distinction between auditorium and performing arts?
that's a tough question. No, I don't know.
So we should, I think.
You're a resident expert.
Just use the word auditorium. I think it's.
Yeah.
Yeah, people generally hear auditorium and think auditorium. That's
Okay,
common.
as long as we think that people understand that, okay.
It'll be consistent terminology with what we use elsewhere too.
There's one clarification on that. Vote no. Number 7, do we want to add an item that's saying like, I voted no because my kids are open and rolled out?
We've got,
Because I know we asked like what type of person you are, but I don't know if maybe they just voted no because they're like, I'm not supporting this district, like my kids don't go here.
yeah, so, under the demographics, we do ask, I have children, grandchildren, or great-grandchildren.
Correct.
Who attend private school or homeschool or open enrolled in another district.
Right, but then under the, they might have voted no on that
Yeah.
bond because their kids are not here.
The one that we have closest to that right now is my kids don't attend public school, and they don't, my tax dollars funding it. We can add another one in there that my kids attend school in
Another district.
another district. Or open.
If you just generalize it, my kids don't attend this
Public school.
district.
Yeah, my kids don't attend in Charles City.
Yep. Okay. Anything else? So I've taken additional gymnasium space and improved traffic on parking out of the priorities, because those are.
or in a priority that any of you would want to add to that list.
Instead of.
Maybe don't lead with ADA
Yeah.
compliance, I don't know if people really,
Curriculum,
Accessibility.
yeah.
security, safety and security, leave it at that one.
One of the reasons I don't usually use accessibility is people look at that differently than ADA compliance. It's more like people have access to the space, like there's more public use of it, sometimes they interpret that
What is
differently.
the American Disability Act?
Yeah,
I think it might be small enough.
Yeah, leave it on there. I just didn't know if that was the person you want to make, but people can get the list.
Move it down.
yeah, I
Yeah,
can
just
certainly
don't-
move it down on the list.
Yeah, what would we want to grab most?
Okay.
The last one that says none of the above, I think I put that, you might put other.
Yeah, I was to be.
Yeah, you'll get,
Yeah, for the answer.
you'll get some comments
Yeah, I
there.
think we can do that and have it be something where they can add comments, definitely. And then the last one is just any open comments they might have or information they want to make sure you're aware of.
We heard in the listening session. Where you had the additional gymnasium space, maybe instead you want additional multi-purpose space. We heard that point once in the listening session.
You could combine them or make it multi-purpose, depending on what we're trying to get at.
I think the multi-purpose space is the right way to go, because we keep hearing it referred to in that way.
Okay.
Okay. All right, well, we'll get this revised and sent back to Brian, and then he can get it out to the group.
Is there anything that's missing that anybody can think of that we didn't?
Again, trying to
Touch
keep
on.
it short enough where it's easy for people to do.
Any questions?
We don't see the 20
We'll add something in there about the IP address so they know they can't.
Well, it sounds like that's misconceived, so I don't care. if we
Well,
don't do
just so people know they can get it other ways too.
Well, we'll have the comment about all comments will be shared with the board, but not all wishes will make it into the final plan or.
All comments will be shared with the board, and the board's gonna make the final decision on what gets in the plan.
So there is no effort whatsoever in any way, shape or form to trace these, but if you start talking about people's IP address, they're gonna think. Now, all of a sudden, oh, wait. they can figure out where I'm at.
I don't,
I don't
it
think
does
that's
not need to have that IP.
What you could do is you could just put a comment in there, one response per
Please, yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Most people will follow.
If somebody's really passionate, like Dean behind you, I know he's gonna go home and he's gonna get a spot of computer time. He's gonna put 1,000 of these in.
Yeah.
That says something that's really important to him.
He's gonna do it every day. so
Every day.
it's like a different person.
And they're gonna walk
by my house and ask to get on the internet. I'm like, what's going on?
We're gonna have 40,000 responses and only have 2,500 voters. This is weird.
All right,
Got it out. You got it.
sounds good. Thank you very much. It's good.
The other question I was gonna ask is, I don't even remember, you said you had access to the previous survey. What were the questions in that? That was like more design-ish.
Yeah,
right?
That was a pre-reference.
That was pre-reference.
So it was really talking about.
The options were developed and they were asking, would you support this option?
Which
or
option?
This option, that kind of.
Can I ask you one other thing? One, could you put on here how you found the survey? Because I'm thinking we're gonna put it on Facebook, we're gonna walk around, we're gonna put it on the website. I think that's important. The second one would be, as we go through the process, what would be the best way for us to communicate with you? Newspaper, Facebook, pigeon,
Really good idea.
postcard,
Yeah.
writing on the wall.
Yes, that's a good question.
Spray paint. Just my point is like, how do we get the
How
information
much
to
people
you?
want to be communicated with? is
Yeah,
important.
and I'm sure we're gonna get a lot of stuff and then we'll just say, well, these are the things.
And actually, Chris, we need to word it as we want to communicate with you. How
And
can
what's
we
your
be most
preferred
effective with you?
method? Yeah.
How do you consume data that we share? Whatever that is.
Any other observations, comments, anything on the survey then? We will send that back to you, Dr. Burnett, and you can run it by the board if you wish again. And then it is our intention to try to get that out on the 26th, maybe the 27th in the morning. And then we would close that on April 7th. It's been our experience that most people within the first week are gonna respond. You don't get a lot more after that, so we think that's appropriate. And that will also let us give some results to you on the night. Board meeting. And we're going to work with you to work with the doctor for them to get the information and all that kind of thing, so we can do it. Hopefully, that's not too short a time frame for them. For me ahead of time. Okay, next, community focus group. One of the things that, when we were having our initial discussions about the project with your, couple of board members that met with us and the administration was to do some kind of a focus group. And this is sort of in addition to the survey. And the idea there is to, start developing those individuals that are passionate about this, that can help us through the process and continue into marketing it, but also ones that have been outspoken either way, so that we can get some insight there as to how we can do things better. When we develop the options, what they think of those, give us input, that kind of thing. So the purpose is to identify and engage key individuals in providing input and feedback during our process. The responsibility is to give that feedback on proposed facilities, planning, perspectives they may have on needs, thoughts on community engagement, attitudes, that type of thing. This is another 12 to 15 person group we find works the best, but it's key individuals and they're usually personally invited to participate in something like this. And that would be all people that are not board members or, administrators, that kind of thing. This one, we would also like to do that. We're scheduling that focus group meeting for April 9th, which is the day of your next board meeting. So we would need to do this quickly and then we would schedule it. Then again, this is a way to develop these people into people that would continue on with us into the bond referendum marketing. So not exactly sure how we want to do this. Yeah, go ahead.
Just April 14th is the next board meeting.
Oh, 14th, sorry.
Yep.
I'll change that.
So the 9th is the Wednesday before.
9th is the Wednesday before.
This might be the wrong approach to take, and I don't care if anybody says it's a bad idea, but if people are taking the time to fill out the survey, they're already gonna be somewhat invested in their opinion on the matter. Is there any value to adding a question on the survey if they would want to be a part of a community group?
Absolutely, good idea.
I mean, unfortunately, then at that point, they're not really being anonymous anymore because I don't know how.
Once we get to the marketing of the referendum, we want 50 people. That's a good group.
Mhm.
We're gonna have lots of tasks to do. There's 4 or 5 different committees we have during that. So we need a lot of people. It would be good to know if people are interested.
I think the question may be, would you be interested in assisting the district in promoting the referendum?
Right.
This fall, because the mayor made a good point. If you put it out there, do you want to be on one of the committees, you could have 50 people respond, and then if you don't put them on there, they're gonna be offended.
So
But then it's like, I like the wording of that question. So then how do you go about getting their goal,
could we
their
put
IP
a,
address?
no, could we put a link on there that they
Oh.
click? And it takes them to another page that they can fill information that we
Yeah.
then get. So
Contact.
it's totally separate from the survey. We don't know who did it. Anybody could do it. And you can click on the survey and then just click that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And independent.
Just one clarification from what was just said. It's, are you interested in helping the community promote this? Not the district. The district is giving information, not telling people how to vote. You know, as
Not
more.
yet. No, I'm kidding. We're not gonna do that.
But that is so then we could use the same survey to get that group going.
I think we can, yeah, we just have to work with.
So is this a tool that you guys create or do you use like a third party to do this for you?
So we'll create the questions and then we'll get those to Dr. Burnett, and then he'll give them to Donovan Group to actually, they've got a program that they use that makes it all pretty and puts it out, format that will be available to put on the district website as well as Facebook.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've used them, but Donovan Group surveys all the time.
Yeah.
You have an
Yeah.
agreement? Yeah, you guys.
We have an
are
agreement with
using it
Donovan.
for-
Yep.
Right.
It's who runs our website?
No.
Well, communication, they support our communications.
So, back to the focus group then, we need to get that organized quickly. And I will contact you about that as well. And we scheduled that focus group meeting for the 9th so that we could give the results for some of the discussion back on the 14th. That distinction there. The next part of the, what's on my, document here, not really gonna go over that. That was the form that we use for the teacher listening sessions. And when you all are thinking about this, if it would be helpful to look at it in this format is why I put it on here for you. Sometimes it's a little bit of a big question to think about if you don't break it down. So I broke it down into the way that we talked about it with the staff and the teachers and that. So this is really just more for your use to look it over, see if you think of anything that we didn't talk about now, or as we go through the process, you can add to this anytime. So that's just for your information and use. And then we're down to goals and priorities for the high school facilities upgrades. We already reviewed some of the staff input and teacher input that we have been gaining over those 2 meetings. Talked about the questions we posed, the themes that came out, some concerns, that type of thing. And some of you were here to hear those. I would like to pose the question as we wrap up for tonight for you to think about. We don't have to answer these all right now, but what are the board's goals for the planning of a significant facilities project? If you had to say, not necessarily what space we need or that kind of thing, from the referendum and planning that you've done before, what are your goals for the process that we're doing now? And I gave some examples. Was the communication not clear? Do you think that people were misunderstanding what we were trying to accomplish? Was it cost that was just out of line for everybody? Do you all have any thoughts about that? We've talked about this in a number of different ways. I just haven't posed it in this terminology before as it being a goal of yours. So what comments would you have regarding that?
So I think, talking about too much about the past, but we had, last time I went to bond, it was not as organized, I don't say significant and should. There's a lot of things that happened in the prior year that I think were very contradictory, like we wanted to add an auditorium, but we were talking about cutting positions in that space. So we confused on what we were doing. And then it seems like we were trying to get something across the finish line that wasn't very clearly identified to the public. They didn't understand what it is we were trying to do and what was important as we look to the future. And I think this board looks at it very differently, that curriculum and education is a big part of it, looking at spaces that fulfill the needs of today and the future, focusing on the areas that we see as, you know, I'm gonna get this wrong, I always get this wrong. USA Job Skills was on the agenda tonight. I think that's the right term. Skills USA. See, it's on the agenda, I still can't get it right. The Skills USA is a big focus for us, right? That jobs in that category are a growing segment. We think it's an important area to focus on, making sure we have space for that. We have a really good ag program and industrial arts. Those are focus areas, but then not forgetting about, you know, math and science and things like that, which need their own space and probably don't have the right facilities today. Are important. And, you know, thinking about the arts and sports are also important, but can there be shared space where we all work together? Can we have a place where there's a lot of multi-purpose for, you know, wrestling and basketball and soccer or whatever those are? And that those weren't all thought out, so people were, you know, confused on what we were trying to accomplish. Dean has his hand up. I don't know if we have him participate.
Yeah, I'm gonna take team off Dean's idea or statement after this.
I would say I was on that vote yes committee.
Yeah.
And you already are 3 steps ahead of where we were. Because you have these guys helping you out. We were 6 people who said, yeah, we want to pass a referendum. We had no guidance, we had, you know, Jerry talked to us, we had some different things, but this is already sounding much more organized.
That's what I was thinking. The thing that I'll say is I'll be not as maybe pointed. I'll say the thing that will get me excited about this is like what looks exciting. Like first thing that somebody's gonna see is you guys seen that Trail City building? Like that's a cool looking, that's a good looking building. My husband does cabinetry, kitchen cabinetry, and so like a lot of the stuff behind the scenes happens and like electrical, the plumbing, like all those things are necessary. But when a person goes and visits their kitchen, Dean Andrews is a
It's first impression.
It's like, whoa, did you see this? Like that's, and like another example I have is we just did some renovation in our house, and so we had to take out this old chimney. Well, then when we did the old chimney, we found out that the air conditioning unit should probably get updated. So then it was like, well, since we're gonna be ripping down this wall, we might as well repair that. Like it was a deadline of 99, like the thing's still running, but it's gonna die. But like, at the end of the day, I'm most excited about the new carpet and paint, like all those other things happen, so.
Gotcha.
That's the visual thing is what gets me excited.
And I mean,
Not to say the other things don't, but I'm like,
it
the wow
sometimes
factor.
seems a little superfluous, but it isn't. I mean,
Right.
it's first impression, it's how you see yourself, it's what you're projecting to others,
and we're very much a visual culture and we're dealing with a high school population who's gonna be like,
right?
Hmm.
Yeah, and you know, our experience and data suggests that when you build something like that, new people come. And so
or they
that's-
talk about it in a
They
positive
talk
way.
about it, yeah.
Well, I think it's almost less about visual impact than being able to see that something was done. You know, it's walking in the building and seeing that something can happen, because again, the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC, that's all important. But you don't see it when you're watching the building. But we don't need another treehouse.
We don't got one.
We're good on treehouses.
Anybody else have any comments about goals then, as far as the board's concerned?
Get to know your community, at least if you're gonna be out there and about helping sell it. Don't come in and tell them it's only gonna cost them a coffee cup a month. It doesn't work, and don't explain that it's 1 tank of gas in your combine. Don't do that, you don't know who you're talking to at that.
Okay.
Only other thing, I'll go back to your schedule. Be careful on Wednesday nights, planning meetings. It is church night in this community, and it's a big church community.
Okay.
No, I do things at Patel like a certain time on Wednesdays, at 5:30.
Yeah, they have to be done with practice by 5.
No, I'm just saying, so if a meeting ended before that.
If we were done by five,
By 5, but yeah, 5, I think it'd still be okay, because kids can still practice up
is there a
until,
better day?
so.
I know you've got stuff scheduled, you know, that's the hard part with this, is there's so many things going on.
It's gonna be tight either way. I'm just thinking in terms of
Yeah.
my family, if I have to have kids at church at 6:30.
Yeah.
And they were at practice till 5, I gotta feed them somehow.
Yeah.
So if I'm in a meeting and I can't get them fed, that makes a really crappy kid sitting all night hungry.
Well, we're gonna put together a schedule with, you know, all this input, I'm gonna send it out, and we're just gonna see, you know, we're gonna massage it as much as we can, but at some point, it's gotta stand, so
Yep.
we'll do our best. Anything else on goals? My next question is, what are the board's specific priorities regarding facilities? So you might ask, what's the difference? Well, I think a goal is more your overall, you know, approach to how we're gonna do this. Your priority is a little bit more detailed. What are things that we need to see in this to get to that goal? So I've suggested a few things that we've heard. Josh had suggested a couple of these in that last answer that I pulled out as being more priorities than goals, but you talked about you have a strong ag program, looking at career readiness in the Skills USA. You have that program, so there's white collar, blue collar job training activities. I said possible auditorium in the future. Now we're in the future, depending on how the plan comes together. And I did hear from several that the wrestling facilities need some work as a priority. Is there anything else that you would like to add as far as your first thoughts or what you've been thinking about so far for priorities?
We have a career center in town that's all remodeled. We need to be the feeder for that.
So that's the community college, right?
Yes.
And so some kind of partnership, one feeds the other.
Yeah.
Yep.
They give us so many seats a year, so many tickets, we need to make sure we're filling.
So I think something that has been talked around is economic development for the community. So if you think about other communities that host wrestling meets or band or choir, we don't do that now because we don't have a way to do that. And I'm not suggesting that we build a facility specifically to do those things, but if there's a way to incorporate the opportunity to be able to have a concert band event or a jazz band event or a wrestling tournament where we can bring in people from other communities and host them at our.
We do host, we hosted like the district wrestling.
But I mean, like, you know, more of that stuff, like, we don't do any music stuff, we do wrestling, but maybe like a basketball tournament or, you know, whatever that is. Or, you know, to get more people here.
Okay.
Yeah, but yes.
Anybody else? Okay, what issues does the board believe need to be communicated to the public to gain support? We've already talked about this again in roundabout ways, but if we had to get down to the point of it, I suggested cost of the project, tax impact, value to students as a couple examples. Do you have other things that you think are going to be critical to be communicated? One that I heard was that the plan is well thought out and
Organized, I think efficiency is another one, talking about renovation versus building it, that's we're taking what we already have, we're gonna fix it and put it back in play. As opposed to we're just gonna wreck it and rebuild it.
I think that's huge. I think practicality is really huge. And I like the fact that you're not bulldozing it, you know, and I think that's important to people that we're working with what we have.
Yeah.
I think there's also some value in. There's some vocal people who feel that their plan that was made 10 years ago
But close
is
to
the best plan. So how do you?
building, and we're using the resources that we have to build the best that we can build with what we have. We're not going into major debt to do this. Not building a $50 million facility because we can't afford that. This is what we can afford to do with the money that we have.
I think you have to communicate to the public that these other plans have not been like shut, because that may be a question. It's like, didn't you guys already design this? Didn't you guys already like? Talk
I've
about
only heard
this?
that from one person.
I guess
These parts of that.
for
Yeah,
me,
I mean, we can. As far as figuring out.
we voted to
we don't
move
use
forward with
numbers,
a $4 million
like,
resolution
letting
tonight.
them know, like, yes, these conversations
That
are
was
short.
the school board taking the initiative up front.
Yeah.
Going forward from here, we need community support because we can't do it by ourselves.
Right, and I think that's a really good point that we make when we start to do the marketing of this plan. And that is, we ran this before, we heard what you said. We have taken that responsibility as important and something, to be thought about. And we're also gonna start it off with that seed money to address the investment, which is what you have. And that's the mechanical, electrical, that's a big first step. And it's something that in financial terms, it buys down how much you have to bond for. It shows your investment in what you have. And it shows, quite honestly, a priority here should be the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Because this building needs it, and if we're going to use what we have, we've got to fix the stuff that we already have first. So I think it's a really important point, and we'll be talking about that with people a lot to show, you're being responsible with, funds, you're being responsible by listening to what they said. All of that is really important.
I think it's been a key aspect of every conversation we've had, facilities committee for the last year, is that a lot of what we're hearing is these are the primary goals from whether it was Jerry or community members. You have to get the heat and air conditioning right. You have to get the bathrooms right. You have to get the sewers right. We're addressing that up front, making sure it's being addressed. But to get the extras, the changes, the beautification of this place and basically if they want, we need the community support. Because financially, if you want us to be financially responsible and build a new building, I don't know how to do that without community help.
Very good point. Last one, what does the board believe are issues that caused the previous referendum to fail? We've talked about that. I think there's common themes here about organization, having a plan that's attainable and affordable, making sure the priorities are correct, that everybody can support them. And if we can't get everything, make sure that we have a plan that is inclusive of everything as much as we can, and have at least the start of a plan that you can use to go forward over the next amount of time. The last thing I wanted to do is if you would put up number 5 for me. I wanted to just give you a little bit of a preview of when we do go into the bond referendum work. And so we won't go over this a lot, but I just wanted to show you how we schedule that. And that is basically I go backwards from the bond referendum date. There are some legal things that you'll have to do in that time frame. But this starts right after we're done with the plan. It does start in the summertime, which is a little bit difficult because people are gone and things. But it also gives us that extra month to really solidify the plan and make sure that we know what we're doing, get our volunteers in order, get all the people that are gonna be helping us do the marketing in order. And then we can really start hard when school starts, when people are back and interested again in what you're doing. So I just wanted to share that. We will be, that's a draft. We'll kind of be working through that as we go through the rest of the process here, but. Okay. I know some of you may have been through this before, but not all. So it's a big undertaking. And I think we've got a good plan for it. This is a really good start. I appreciate all of your time and attention. I know it can be a lot to think about. We can see your commitment to it. Just in the meetings that I've had, I can understand that this is really important to you and you're not taking it lightly. And we appreciate that too. So thank you for what you're doing. Any last wrap up questions or anything that you'd like to talk about before we end today?
So I think an important one for us is probably cost. We haven't talked about that, right? So it's kind of the elephant in the room. So there's a cost to this from your perspective. The board agreed to pay a fee to get this kind of started, right? We're gonna run out of that money's gonna be used in this process.
Yep.
What's the next step from a financial perspective? Or you guys are gonna say, and what's the ultimate cost from your perspective, do you think, as part of the project?
Yep.
Percentage wise.
Yeah, so we gave you a proposal that we're working off of now. If any additional costs, it would be small for that.
Okay.
I don't see any now, and it will cost us a lot more to do this than what you'll get out of it, but there's an upside for us too, right? We get to work on the project with you, so we do team and partner that way. We don't charge, all of our time. Usually it takes about twice as much time as we bill for that. But we have another step in the process, and that's the referendum marketing campaign. We do offer that service as something that we can run the whole campaign for you and advise you on it, or we can advise you and do part of it. Our discussion so far is that I think you would benefit from our full help in this case with the circumstances that you have. We haven't given that proposal yet because I wanted to get through some of this and see where we stood and how much work we thought it would be. I really can't even remember what our original agreement was for. That your investment is. Usually the referendum comes in around $25,000 or $35,000 for us to run the whole thing. So I think it's probably a $60,000 investment to get to the bond referendum with us. And then what we do there is any work that we've done that is relevant to the scope of the final project that is being designed, we can credit some of that fee back. We don't want to charge you for it twice. So for example, we're going to do a couple options and show you what some of these things might look like. Well, that's beneficial to us if we go forward. So we can credit some of that back. So that's our side of it. We haven't come up with anything as far as what's a reasonable budget yet. All we've done is talked with Dr. Burnite and the other board members about what you can possibly raise by running a bond referendum. And we know roughly what you did before and what the parameters of that were before. So whatever that number ends up to be, and right now, the prevailing thing I think is to run a single question bond referendum. And you can only raise a certain amount of money with that. We'll have to see what Piper Jaffray says about what that is. I think we know roughly, but we'll kind of hone in on that as we go. And then we design to that budget. So whatever our priorities are, we just tick them off get as many as we can done. And we try to put you in a position that then you can go forward with that flexible plan. Most of the time, our marketing efforts centers on what we talked about before with you about being good stewards. You're already putting $4 million up front, which buys down what you're going to ask the public to fund more of. There's some other projects I think that Jerry's planning to do over the summers that will set up the next projects that come. And so I can't tell you right now where I think we'll be as a number for the bond referendum, but we should know that by your June meeting as we go through the process and kind of get the plan together. And then after that, when we are ready, when the bond referendum passes and we're ready to go forward, then we will negotiate a fee with you to do the architectural and engineering work. We generally include the mechanical, electrical, plumbing work in with that. There's basic services and then there's additional, but there's going to be a civil engineer required and possibly, if an auditorium was undertaken, it might be a sound and lighting type of engineering required, that kind of thing. We're a little too far out to know much about that yet, but that's kind of the setup. Did that get at your question?
Just one clarification I think is important. You said we would talk about the max that we could do and then build to that number. And I think what we really talk about is we're going to get all the priorities we can for the money that we can. And if we can do it for less than that, then
absolutely.
Focus.
Yeah, we're not using it all. Yeah.
Let's try to spend as much as we possibly can, because that I think is the wrong message.
Right.
We want to do the priorities that
you said it better than I did.
Yeah.
We have never encountered a district that didn't have more need than they had money.
Okay, great.
So just thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Anything else?
And Matt, your structure is a certain percentage, but then at a certain point it caps out.
Oh, correct.
You're not,
Yeah.
you're not.
Yeah, we do a
by
fixed
selling.
fee arrangement, so there's
Yeah.
not, it doesn't change based on the numbers or anything like that, so you know what it is upfront. We will base it on a percentage over an estimate first, but then we change it to a fixed fee, so we don't have to worry about it going forward.
So they're not financially motivated to raise the price. Like, oh, if they get a bigger bond.
We just negotiate that, like, how much work it is.
Yeah.
I think that's important too. Well, Matt, Christopher, thanks for coming up. We appreciate you guys spending
Yeah,
time with us.
thank you.
Thanks for your.
Appreciate it.
And the input.
Yeah. We need to adjourn this.
I'll just say we had
Okay,
great total.
No,
Meeting.
no, it's.